Chapter 1135. Are you serious? How am I not serious? Chen Zhao looked at Dell seriously. He really wanted to tell Dell that he wasn't serious from head to toe. It's not easy to get Auntie Qing's approval. If you don't have the talent, you won't be accepted. Don't you Chinese say that hard work makes up for a lack of talent? You don't have talent. Cultivating magic isn't like other skills. Most people in the world can't cultivate. It's useless no matter how hard you work. Rupert was good at adding insult to injury. Chun, do you think I have talent? I don't think so. I'll ask Auntie Qing later. Just then, Dell's bodyguard drove over. Okay, let's go. Chun, I still have something to say. If you keep nagging, I'll ask Auntie Qing to reject you. Okay, I'm going. Dell was unwilling, but he still got in the car obediently. Let's go. Qin Zhao glanced at Rupert. Where are we going? Near? Rupert was even more unwilling, and it was completely shown on her face. Moreover, she always did whatever she wanted because she was a kid. She would only restrain herself a little in front of Qin Zhao. She knew that if Qin Zhao wanted to punish her, he wouldn't care if she was a kid or not. Come, get on my back. You want to carry me? Rupert couldn't believe it. Qin Zhao was so generous. Her impression of Qin Zhao was that he was a violent person. As long as it wasn't his friend, he would treat them in a violent way. But she clearly wasn't his friend. Rupert climbed onto Qin Zhao's back unwillingly. Hold on tight. Hold on tight. Hold on tight? Yes. Okay. Suddenly, Qin Zhao sped up. Oh. Rupert felt the strong wind slap her face. When she opened her mouth, the wind poured into her mouth. Right now, Rupert only wanted to escape from Qin Zhao's back. But Qin Zhao's hands were firmly gripping her legs. She couldn't break free at all. The night wind whipped Rupert's face hard. Rupert had never felt so real or so fast. She couldn't even open her eyelids, and the skin on her face was completely deformed. If you were sitting in a car traveling at 150 kilometers per hour and stuck your head out of the window facing the wind, you wouldn't be able to speak. Moreover, Chen Zhao was moving at full speed. The huge wind pressure at 500 kilometers per hour was enough to make Rupert want to die. Rupert could only hide behind Chen Zhao. She watched as the streetlights on the road moved backward. This feeling lasted for 10 minutes before it stopped. Chen Zhao put Rupert on the ground. Rupert looked at the building before her. She didn't understand where she was. At this moment, the guard inside opened the iron gate. Guild leader, why are you here? I have something to do. Go rest first, Qin Zhao said. Qin Zhao brought Rupert into the headquarters. At this moment, West ran over. Guild leader, why are you here? Prepare a room for her, and have someone keep an eye on her. If she dares to run away, you can take any form of attack. West glanced at Rupert. He didn't understand how a little girl like her had offended Qin Zhao. But then he thought about Risa. She was only in her teens, but after offending Qin Zhao, she was still punished. So, West wasn't that surprised. Just then, Agars walked out. When Rupert saw Agars, she was immediately shocked. What's this? Qin Zhao glanced at Rupert and then said to Agars, have her stay in the same room as Agars. What? Have me stay with her? This monster won't eat people, right? Slap. Qin Zhao slapped Rupert's head. Have some respect. Agars, keep an eye on her. If she wants to run, you can shoot her with your bow. Of course, I don't want her to die if possible, so you just have to tear her tendons with your sharp claws. Rupert rubbed her head, depressed. She didn't understand what Qin Zhao and Agars were talking about. But she believed that it wouldn't be anything good. For example, this girl is very naughty. Teach her a lesson for me. Patya brought Rupert into a room. Little girl, you'll be living here from now on. Little girl? I'm older than you. I just stopped growing for 20 years because of special reasons. You have to call me sister, okay? Oh, there are some things you need to pay attention to. For example, don't disobey the president's orders, don't get into conflict with him, and don't question his decisions. President? You mean Qin? Yes. Patya heard Rupert call Qin Zhao by his surname. In her impression, only Gaia called Qin Zhao like that. You know the president long ago? Of course. He loves me a lot. Then what did you do to make the president put you in the same room as Agars? Agars? That leopard-headed monster? Yes, that's one of Solomon's 72 demon god pillars. Don't joke. It's just a legend. Rupert was halfway through her laugh when she saw Patya's serious gaze. That Agars is really one of Solomon's 72 demon god pillars? Yes, Patya said. The president found him a few days ago and summoned him. This monster might turn on you, Rupert said. No way. Agars is cold, but he's easy to get along with, Patya said. Plus, as long as the president is here, no threat is a threat. One day, he'll also encounter an enemy he can't deal with. No one can be strong forever. Maybe you should go to the basement and see a powerful enemy the president killed. You'll definitely be shocked. I'm a spiritualist too. I've seen Qin fight with powerful monsters. He's indeed powerful, but not enough to scare me. Just then, Agars walked in. The room was specially prepared for Agars. The door was also specially raised. But when Agars entered the room, he still had to lower his head. After entering the room, Agars glanced at Rupert and then said to Patya, Sleep. Okay, Rupert. I'm leaving. See you tomorrow. Agar's bed was specially made. It was huge. Rupert looked at Agars. Hey, you're Agars, right? Agars glanced at Rupert and then laid down on the bed. Chapter 1136. Rupert and Agars slept on the same bed. Rupert felt warmth, something she had never felt before. When she woke up in the morning, Rupert realized that she'd slept the whole night with Agars in her arms. Agars had short fur all over his body, just like a wild beast. But to Rupert, Agars was more like a furry toy. After washing up, Rupert followed Agars to the dining room. She realized that half of the dining room was filled with evil spirits. Even the ones who served her food were evil spirits. Many evil spirits here were disaster level. Rupert was a witch herself, and she wasn't weak either. But living under the same roof with so many evil spirits was too uncomfortable for her. But everyone here was very natural. Even the old man guarding the door chatted with the evil spirits nonchalantly. Just then, a woman dressed in a Gothic style walked into the dining room. Rupert's first impression was that this woman wasn't easy to deal with. She emanated a very obvious aura of death. Usually, those with the aura of death were either people who were about to die or people who worked with the dead. Even the evil spirits made way for Helith when she arrived. Even evil spirits didn't want to come into contact with her. If they were touched by her aura of death, it would be very scary for evil spirits. They wouldn't dare to go out for a few days because they might encounter bad luck. You're weak. She's strong. Agars glanced at Rupert and knew what she was thinking. But her English limited her way of expressing herself. Rupert looked away. Qin Zhao had entered the river map long ago. Old Turtle, do you know the Shangqing region? Or should I say, the world is clear? Yes, Old Turtle answered. Old Turtle sat by the river and held a fishing rod. But there were no fish in the river. Apart from Old Turtle and Qin Zhao, there were no other creatures in the entire river map. What are the requirements for the Shangqing region? Or how to enter it? Comprehend the world and empty your mind. How? Just sit here cross-legged for a few thousand years. That long? A few thousand years in the river diagram was only a few years in the outside world. The river diagram is boundless. There is no real heaven and earth. The ground beneath our feet is just a huge rock, and the sky above our heads is a void. So, you can only accumulate your comprehension here and use enough time to facilitate it. One day, when an idea flashes in your mind, you will succeed. Is there no other faster way? Qin Zhao didn't think he had that much time. He felt like he would go crazy if he had to sit here for a few thousand years. Yes, go and feel the real world for yourself, Old Turtle said. With your current technology, you can comprehend the world more easily than the ancients. It can't be that I have to go to the heavens to comprehend the heavens and the earth to comprehend the earth, right? That's right. Isn't it simple? Is there a method that is both simple and fantastical? The last time you were at the extreme transformation, you created the mysterious ice domain and the heavenly fire domain, which are very suitable for this kind of cultivation style. No. Old Turtle shook his head. How about I throw you into the sky? Air. Never mind. Qin Zhao was afraid that if Old Turtle threw him into the sky, he might fall for a few months. How many fish have you caught? Are you stupid? Are there fish here? Old Turtle rolled his eyes. Since you know there are no fish here, why are you still fishing? Are you going to learn from Jiangxia? Learn from him? He should learn from me. I'm old enough to be his ancestor, Old Turtle said proudly. Then what are you doing instead of fishing? I've been sitting here for more than a decade. I'm training my mind. Qin Zhao looked at Old Turtle, who still didn't move. After a while, Qin Zhao left the river diagram in boredom. In the morning, Evely came to train again. Evely's complaint was that Qin Zhao's training time was too short. Even though one morning of training might be more effective than a month of training for her, Evely still felt that time was too short. Or rather, she was reluctant to leave Mirror Lake. She envied Qin Zhao for being able to find such a good place to stay. In the afternoon, Qin Zhao went to the headquarters of the association. Klaus, come here for a second. President, what's up? How high can our helicopter fly? President, are you talking about the highest altitude? That's right. About 6,500 meters. Fill up the helicopter and send me up. Oh, okay. President, where are we going? Nowhere, Qin Zhao said. Just flying up. Klaus was confused, but he still carried out Qin Zhao's mission. President, we're already at 6,000 meters. If we climb any higher, the airflow will cause the helicopter to lose control. Do we still want to go up? Helicopters relied on the difference in air pressure to climb, but the higher the altitude, the lower the air pressure. It was more difficult for the helicopter to climb. Usually, civilian helicopters could barely reach 4,000 meters. Military helicopters were mostly below 7,000 meters. Qin Zhao felt the airflow and temperature outside the helicopter. Maintain this altitude, Qin Zhao said. Qin Zhao sat in the back seat and started meditating. However, he didn't feel anything. The air here was already thin and so was the spiritual qi. Qin Zhao found it hard to cultivate. Cultivating here for 100 years might not be as good as cultivating in Mirror Lake for a year. Was it because the altitude here wasn't high enough? Or did he need to jump outside to feel the sky? Klaus, fly the helicopter to the wound in the lake. Okay. Klaus obeyed Qin Zhao's order and moved the helicopter above the man-made lake. I'll go down first. You can land by yourself. With that, Qin Zhao jumped down. Head down, body vertical, Qin Zhao plummeted like a scallion. Qin Zhao closed his eyes. Instantly, he found the feeling. The air kept attacking every corner of Qin Zhao's body. It was like something was constantly stimulating Qin Zhao's body and mind. However, he couldn't grasp that thing. Enlightenment, enlightenment, enlightenment. Suddenly, Qin Zhao opened his eyes. Before he could savor that feeling, the huge impact had already arrived. Splash! Qin Zhao fell into the lake, creating a huge splash. After a while, he surfaced and swam to the shore. Klaus' helicopter landed too. Klaus knew that Qin Zhao had the ability to resist the impact of falling. However, it was still hard to imagine Qin Zhao jumping down from such a high place with his own eyes. Chapter 1137. Klaus was speechless inside. Wasn't it exciting enough to jump from that height? But he was really envious. He could jump from that height without using any cushioning equipment. Guild leader, propeller planes can generally fly more than 8,000 meters. Moreover, propeller planes are cheap, even cheaper than helicopters. The most expensive one might only cost $2 to $3 million, while the cheaper ones can be bought for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The thing Klaus was most satisfied with about the supernatural organization was that it had ample funding. In the past, he had a few hundred people in the counterterrorism department. In the end, their budget was only a few $100,000. After deducting their salaries, the remaining funds could be counted on one hand. If they wanted to modify a car, they had to beg for help from the finance department. In the end, when they received a few $100,000, they had to thank Chen Zhao shamelessly. But in the supernatural organization, there were less than 30 people. Chen Zhao was also very generous with tens of millions of dollars. It wasn't just in terms of their salaries. In terms of their funding, as long as their requests were reasonable. Especially if they wanted to modify their equipment or weapons. Without even thinking, Chen Zhao called them without any hesitation. Buying a plane for $1 or $2 million was almost impossible for the counterterrorism department in the past. When they needed to use a plane, they would rent it. But now, they had to buy it without saying anything. Also, they had to rely on the lightning squad to buy a plane. After all, they knew planes the best. They were also the ones who used planes the most. Usually, if they went on a mission, they could fly a helicopter to show off. Chen Zhao thought about it. Are there any planes that can fly higher? Chen Zhao felt that the fall was too short. He needed more time to comprehend. But propeller planes needed airflow to ascend. They couldn't fly too high. If you want to fly at higher altitudes, you will need a jet. But for jets, the runway here could not meet the needs of takeoff and landing. President, if we modify it, I'm confident that I can make the propeller plane climb more than 10,000 meters. Not enough. Chen Zhao shook his head. Forget it. I'll think of something else. Chen Zhao didn't want to make things difficult for Klaus. The hardware wasn't good enough. Killing Klaus wouldn't solve the problem. President, how high do you want? The higher, the better. Guild leader, do you want to consider the hydrogen balloon? Chen Zhao slapped his forehead. Right. If the only requirement was the height, the hydrogen balloon was undoubtedly the best choice. At least in terms of cost-effectiveness, the hydrogen balloon was the best choice. The main principle of the hydrogen balloon was that the mass of hydrogen was much lower than that of air. However, when an ordinary hydrogen balloon flew up to a kilometer, due to the gradual decrease in pressure, the volume of hydrogen gas would increase, and eventually, the outer sphere would explode. However, in the 1950s, it was already possible to rely on hydrogen balloons to ascend to an altitude of 30,000 meters. Now that more than 60 years had passed, there were no technical problems. Help me make a hydrogen balloon that can fly to an altitude of more than 30,000 meters. Ask Wes for how much money you need. All right, but it will take some time. How long will it take? We need to buy an ordinary hydrogen balloon and then modify it. The estimated time is about 10 days. All right, as soon as possible. Guild leader, if you go up into the sky, not only will you have to face gravity, but the low temperature, thin air, and strong ultraviolet rays will also be fatal. I know. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Chen Zhao thought of another problem. How should he deal with the underground? Oh, the crypt demon's relic was underground, but it didn't seem deep enough. He needed to find a chance to go to the relic and ask them if there was a deeper place. Thinking of the crypt demons, Chen Zhao thought of something else. Back then, he promised the crypt demons that he'd get them a wild boar monster. They seemed to call those boars Nissan. It seemed that he had to go to the desert outside of Las Vegas again. There was no time like the present. Let's go today. Las Vegas wasn't far anyway. It was a city in Nevada, but it was less than 400 kilometers away from Los Angeles. Klaus, let's go to Las Vegas. Guild leader, which casino? Do we need to bring guns? You're thinking too much, Chen Zhao said. We're going to the desert in Las Vegas. Klaus was still a little disappointed. For every man, going to Las Vegas to gamble once was their lifelong dream. Of course, for someone like Chen Zhao who had no interest in gambling, Las Vegas wasn't attractive at all. If you want to go, we can go to Las Vegas next time. Guild leader, can I drive your car? Klaus was also very interested in sports cars. Usually, he was envious of Chen Zhao's Porsche 918. However, he was afraid of Chen Zhao's authority, so he didn't dare to ask to borrow the car. This time, he finally had the chance to drive Chen Zhao's luxury car properly. Sure, as long as you don't hit my car, drive as fast as you can. Guild leader, I promise to be in Las Vegas in 2 hours, Klaus said, rubbing his hands. Sure, let's go now. Chen Zhao was impatient and had a lot of things to do recently. If he missed today, who knew how long he would have to wait for the next time? Klaus' driving was much bolder and crazier than Chen Zhao's. After buying the car, Chen Zhao had driven it a few times. This was the first time he truly displayed the power of the Porsche 918. No wonder so many people like the explosive power of sports cars. In order to enjoy the thrill, Klaus deliberately deviated from the main road and chose a more remote one. Guild leader, do you know Highway 666? Yes. Do you want to tell me about the Highway to Hell? You've heard of this legend? Not only have I heard of it, I've even entered the real Highway to Hell. Didn't I go to Las Vegas on New Year's Day? I took a bus back and then entered Highway to Hell. Is Highway to Hell scary? Not really. The twisted monsters on the second level of the Tower of Trials are the same as the ones on Highway to Hell. Klaus was speechless. Thinking about it, Chen Zhao seemed even scarier than the so-called Highway to Hell. He hadn't been to the second level, but he'd heard Helis, Norma, and Gaia talk about it. He had a rough idea of how scary it was. But Chen Zhao didn't care about the twisted monsters at all. But it made sense. Chen Zhao could pass through the 6th level and increase the strength of the monsters on each level. Chapter 1138. One didn't have to be very powerful to see things. It depended on the level of people they'd met. He'd fought a few high-level enemies with Chen Zhao before, so Klaus's vision was also very high now. Klaus's lightning team's daily training was based on powerful enemies. 2.5 hours. It was half an hour slower than expected. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao was still very satisfied with Klaus' driving skills. Drop me off here, Chen Zhao said. You can go walk around Las Vegas by yourself. When I'm done, come pick me up here. President, do you need me to go with you? No, it's just a small matter. I just need to walk around. Chen Zhao got off the car on the road outside of Las Vegas. Las Vegas was built on a desert to begin with. Chen Zhao entered the desert, and soon approached the Crypt Demon Relic area. A massacre had happened here, but it had been cleaned up long ago. There was only a "No Entry" sign with a sign of chemical contamination and a skull on it. Chen Zhao had just walked a few steps when he saw a desert four-wheeled motorcycle drive over, kicking up dust. On the motorcycle was a policewoman wearing a cowboy hat. The scorching sun here made her skin a bit red. The policewoman stopped the bike before Chen Zhao and took off her sunglasses. Who are you? Why are you here? The policewoman looked Chen Zhao up and down. She saw that he was only wearing a t-shirt, sweatpants, and sneakers. It was really strange for him to appear here like that. Sightseeing. Is there a problem? Don't you see the sign over there? What sign? Chen Zhao pretended to be blind. There's chemical pollution here. Don't get close. Are you a tourist? I'm from LA, Chen Zhao said calmly. Even if you're sightseeing, your clothes are too simple. Usually, when people came to the desert to sightsee, they couldn't wear revealing clothes. Otherwise, the strong ultraviolet rays in the desert would cause sunburn. Also, their pants couldn't be too loose, or else the poisonous snakes and scorpions in the desert might crawl into their pants. However, Chen Zhao was dressed casually. In the policewoman's eyes, he wasn't here to sightsee. He was here to die. In Las Vegas, more than 10,000 people died from poisonous snakes and scorpions in the desert every year. There would also be hundreds of people missing, all due to incomplete equipment. The policewoman felt that Qin Zhao had come here for a walk. "Let me see your driver's license." Qin Zhao handed his license to the policewoman. She called the headquarters and asked for his license number. "University professor?" The policewoman looked at him. "Since you're a university professor, don't you know anything about precautions?" Qin Zhao couldn't think of any excuse to get rid of the policewoman. "Fine," Qin Zhao said, shrugging. "I made a bet with my friend to stay in the desert for 6 hours. Hearing his explanation, the policewoman felt that he was telling the truth. Qin Zhao didn't look like a tourist at all. Moreover, tourists needed to go to the desert. Usually, they would have a special team, and they would not be brought to such a forbidden zone. "Come up, I'll send you out," the policewoman said. "Miss, can I stay here for a while?" Qin Zhao asked. "You know, with what you're wearing now, you'll be burnt to death before the sun sets in less than 6 hours, and you didn't even bring any water. Aren't there some rock strata over there? I can hide from the sun there. I'll leave later." The policewoman shook her head. "No. Leave now, or I'll arrest you. You'll make me lose $100 like this. Don't make me warn you again." "Fine, fine." Helpless, Qin Zhao sat on the policewoman's four-wheeled motorcycle and was sent to the city. Qin Zhao looked like he had nothing to live for. He found a bar and sat down to drink. It seemed that he could only wait until it was dark before going in. Qin Zhao had just ordered a glass of wine and was drinking at a table outside the bar when the policewoman came again. "You still want to go into the desert?" "Officer, I'm just drinking. That's all. That area is very dangerous. Don't you know? People died there before." "Sorry, I just want to drink in peace." Qin Zhao smiled at the policewoman. "Maybe I should buy you a drink." The policewoman stared at him. "I'll keep an eye on you. If you dare to step into the desert again, I'll arrest you." "Miss Officer, did I break any laws? I have the right to arrest anyone I think is suspicious." Qin Zhao really found it annoying, but he only needed to go into the desert at night and get a Nissan. There was no need to talk to the policewoman now. Just then, the policewoman received a call and left in a hurry. "Weena, a fugitive escaped into the restricted area under your jurisdiction." Weena's expression was serious as she drove her car into the restricted area. Weena knew what was inside. She also knew how dangerous it was. Especially at night, it would turn into a shiraba. Even she did not dare to linger in there. It was getting late. If she couldn't find the fugitive and bring him out before dark, she might only find his broken limbs tomorrow morning. Or maybe she wouldn't even be able to find his broken limbs. After entering the restricted area, Weena found footprints very quickly. From the clarity of the footprints, the fugitive hadn't left for long. Weena followed the footprints to find the fugitive. Finally, Weena arrived outside an abandoned camp. This place used to be a military encampment, and a tragic incident had occurred here before. The military had been attacked by something here at night. Almost everyone had died. The tents were very dilapidated. Many of them were already leaking air. Some even had bloodstains on them. Weena took out her gun and glanced at the sky. Weena entered the tent carefully, her gun still in her hand. Suddenly, she heard a whistling sound behind her. Weena also noticed a shadow on the ground and was about to turn around. The gun in her hand had already been knocked to the ground by a wooden stick. Weena was about to pick up the gun when the person who had attacked her pushed her to the ground. From the information her colleagues had given her, Weena already knew that the fugitive was a murderer. He was very dangerous. Weena fought back with all her might and kicked the fugitive's stomach. The fugitive took a few steps back. Then he grabbed Weena's hair and threw her to the ground. Chapter 1139. Winnie turned around and wanted to run, but a gunshot sounded. Winnie fell to the ground. Her thigh was shot through. Winnie already regretted coming here. She regretted coming here. Winnie turned around and watched the criminal approach her step by step. "This is the perfect crime scene. After I'm done, I can bury you here and no one will ever find you." Winnie panted heavily and looked at the criminal. More accurately, she looked at the thing behind the criminal. The criminal saw the shadow under his feet. What was that? The fugitive turned around abruptly, and saw a huge monster standing in front of him. But the monster had a tattered cloth on it. It was a crypt demon, but the sky wasn't completely dark yet. Crypt demons were very sensitive to light, so this one had a piece of cloth on it. But now, it looked more like a piece of clothing. What is that? The crypt demon bit the criminal's neck. Help! Help! Help me! The criminal cried weakly, but he couldn't do anything. Soon, the crypt demon bit off half of the criminal's neck. The crypt demon had a shocking bite force. It could easily bite through a person's body, let alone a neck. The crypt demon slowly walked up to Vinnie and sniffed her body with its nose. Winnie froze. She could clearly see the criminal's blood on the crypt demon's head. Winnie carefully reached out and touched the crypt demon. Luote! The crypt demon's claw lightly scratched Winnie's cheek before it turned away. Luote was the name Winnie gave the crypt demon. On New Year's Eve, the night of the incident, Winnie was on duty nearby when she met the crypt demon. The crypt demon was heavily injured. Winnie didn't know what she was thinking. She saved the crypt demon and hid it in her house. When the crypt demon woke up the next day, it almost killed Winnie. But after noticing the bandages on her body, the crypt demon didn't hurt her anymore. Winnie gave the crypt demon the name Luote. It was her brother's name. However, when Winnie was very young, her brother passed away. Later on, Vinnie also found out about the massacre in the desert on television. Then, Vinnie sent Roth back here. Luote sensed the setting sun and screamed at Vinnie. Ing. Although Winnie did not understand what Luote was saying, she could understand him. Luote wanted Winnie to leave. Because darkness was coming, when that time came, his clansmen would be wandering nearby. If Winnie encountered them, she would not be able to escape death. Crypt demons were intelligent, and their intelligence was no less than that of humans. The only difference between them was the level of civilization. However, Vinnie couldn't move at all. Her thigh was injured, and Winnie was still sitting on the ground. Lot seemed a little anxious. He came forward and sniffed Vinnie's thigh. Although crypt demons couldn't see, they could sense other creatures' states through their sense of smell. Lot dragged Vinnie into the tent and used his finger to cut a wound on his face. He then smeared his blood on Vinnie's body. Luote, what are you doing? Ing. Are you trying to trick your friends with your smell? Vinnie asked. Ing. Luote covered Vinnie with a heavy cloth. At the same time, he dragged the escaped prisoner's body in. What happened next was more bloody. Luote tore the prisoner into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. Luote even picked up Vinnie's gun and tossed it to her. The sky was already starting to darken. Just then, footsteps came from outside. Luote and Vinnie fell silent at the same time. Vinnie was very nervous. If she encountered other crypt demons, her chances of survival were very low. It's been so long. Why is there such a heavy smell of blood here? Qin Zhao strolled in the abandoned camp. Hearing this voice, Vinnie immediately thought of the Asian she'd met in the afternoon. That Asian man still managed to get in. He really didn't know what was good for him. He'd actually come to such a dangerous place. The desert at night was more dangerous than during the day. Especially in the Forbidden Zone, it would be even more dangerous to encounter crypt demons. Qin Zhao noticed that the tent beside him had a heavy smell of blood. He pulled open the cloth and saw that the ground was a mess. At the same time, there were two other figures in the tent. One was the policewoman he'd met in the afternoon. The other was a crypt demon. Hi. Vinnie's face darkened. Why are you here? Would you believe me if I said I'm here to play? Ing. Vinnie saw that Luote was very hostile toward Qin Zhao. Like a beast pouncing on its prey, Luote leaned forward. Luote, don't hurt him. He's not a bad person, Vinnie hurriedly said. She could ignore the escaped prisoner just now. That was because the escaped prisoner deserved to die. Thus, Vinnie didn't have any sympathy. But to her, Qin Zhao didn't deserve to die. Hee. Is this your pet? Your pet is really special, Chen Zhao said, chuckling. Vinny froze. Was this guy blind? Couldn't he see that Luo Te was different? Was it because it was too dark here? Couldn't he see clearly? But Luo Te was almost 4 meters long. He couldn't not know, right? Or was he pretending to be calm? Just then, a gust of wind blew in the desert. The smell of blood from the tent was also blown toward the cave in the ruins. Chen Zhao left the tent because he sensed that something had come out from the ruins. There were a lot of them too. The wind didn't just blow the escaped prisoner's blood over. It also blew Chen Zhao's scent over. A large number of crypt demons and Nissan species swarmed over. The crypt demons still remembered Chen Zhao, the instigator of all this. After all, Chen Zhao was the one who'd started an all-out conflict between the crypt demons and the military. Although the crypt demons had slaughtered almost everyone in the military camp, it didn't mean that they were unharmed. The crypt demons were also heavily injured. But Chen Zhao, the instigator, wasn't punished at all. The surrounding tents were all torn down. Vinny was also exposed. When she saw the densely packed crypt demons and wild boars, she was so scared that she lost her ability to think. Just then, Luo Te came to Vinny's side and protected her. Chapter 1140. Weenie curled up in a corner and looked at the countless monsters around her. Hi, Your Majesty, we meet again. Chen Zhao looked at a petite figure among the crypt demons. Of course, the so-called petite was only relative to other crypt demons. For humans, a body that was more than 3 meters tall was still considered huge. The other crypt demons immediately stood in front of their queen. Weenie looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. Did this Asian know about the monsters? But was he scared out of his wits? He actually wanted to reason with these monsters? Most of the crypt demons Weenie had seen ate humans. Even Lot was the same. If not for their special experience, Lot would probably be like the other crypt demons. To her, these monsters couldn't communicate with humans at all. Chen Zhao shrugged helplessly. I didn't come with enmity, so I think we can coexist peacefully. I just want 2 boar monsters. Oh, the Nissan species. Chen Zhao didn't have any enmity, but the crypt demons' hostility didn't decrease. They seemed to want to attack Chen Zhao. Your Majesty, you know that if I want to kill you, you won't be able to escape. Chen Zhao looked at the female crypt demon. Weenie didn't understand where this Asian got his confidence from. He was actually talking to these monsters in such a tone. From her point of view, Chen Zhao was seeking his own death. Chen Zhao looked at the surrounding boar monsters. If possible, Chen Zhao would just grab a wild boar monster and leave. But these boar monsters didn't have the ability to reproduce. To put it bluntly, they were naturally castrated. The Nissan species were very similar to the crypt demons. Or rather, they were like bees. They also had a female body and a group of males. The female body was used for reproduction. If the female died, a male would appear among the males and become the female body. Among the wild boar monsters, there were other Nissan breeds, such as the male breeds that bred with their mothers, the soldier breeds that protected the tribe, and the meat breeds that were provided to the crypt demons. The ones surrounding Chen Zhao now were the most common soldiers. They couldn't be used for reproduction. Only by obtaining the mother or a male seed would it work. To be precise, there were 2 of them. As long as there were 2 males, one of them would naturally transform and become a mother. Then, they would be able to reproduce into a race. Of course, the crypt demon definitely knew the exact process better than Chen Zhao. If Chen Zhao asked for the mother directly, they definitely wouldn't give it to him. However, if they wanted 2 male seeds, they would probably give it to him after considering the pros and cons. Of course, he also considered robbing them. But unless it was absolutely necessary, Chen Zhao wasn't willing to do this. After all, they were an intelligent race, not a bunch of wild beasts. Therefore, Chen Zhao preferred to negotiate with them peacefully. However, the crypt demons around him were filled with hostility. When the entrance to their ruins was discovered by humans, they had no intention of becoming enemies with humans. They would only attack when humans entered the ruins. But that time, Qin Zhao had used them to fight the humans head-on. As a result, they suffered heavy losses. Vinny's nerves were taut, and her emotions were extremely nervous. She could feel that the crypt demons were about to attack. Beep, but just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang. The crypt demons jumped in fright. The encirclement, which had been slowly approaching, retreated a few more steps. Qin Zhao picked up his phone and saw that it was Fei Lai. "Chen, you're not coming back tonight?" "Oh, something came up. I'll be back later," Qin Zhao said. "You don't have to leave me dinner. Come back soon. I miss you." "Okay, darling." Qin Zhao hung up. Just then, his phone rang again. Qin Zhao picked it up. It was Klaus' voice. "President, did you solve your problem?" "Not yet. Do you need reinforcements?" "No need. Play in Las Vegas first. Come pick me up when I'm done." "Okay." Klaus hung up. Just then, the female crypt demon walked out. "Human, you shouldn't have come back here. I haven't settled the score with you for last time. Did you forget what you did to me?" "Huh! You can actually talk. You couldn't talk last time." Qin Zhao was very surprised. Winnie looked at the petite crypt demon in surprise. She was also very surprised. Crypt demons could talk? "Human, what do you want?" the female asked. "I want 2 Nissan species," Qin Zhao said. "Do you know what the Nissan is used for?" the female crypt demon asked. "Yes." "How do you know?" "Your kind told me," Qin Zhao said. "There are other races?" The female crypt demon was surprised. "Yes. Their numbers are greater than yours." "Which race told you to ask for the Nissan species?" "Yes." "Have their Nissan species gone extinct?" "If they did, they wouldn't have asked for them from you," Qin Zhao said. "What's your relationship with that race?" "We're friends now." Winnie looked at Qin Zhao in surprise. No wonder he dared to swagger into this place. It turned out that he was more familiar with these monsters than she was. However, it seemed that he had an old grudge against them. It was hard to guarantee that these monsters wouldn't attack him. If so many monsters were to attack, the man and himself would be dead. "Your Majesty, although you have the advantage in numbers, if a conflict really breaks out, you will definitely be the ones to suffer. Moreover, you will definitely die. If you want other heirs to replace you, then let's start a war." Crypt demons weren't stupid. The crypt demons weren't stupid. Their intelligence wasn't lower than that of humans. Therefore, Qin Zhao believed that the female crypt demon knew how to avoid danger. If he could threaten her before, he could do it again. Moreover, he'd let her go on his own. She should know how to choose. "I can't give you the Nissan species." "Why?" "The Nissan species we use for reproduction have been blocked by the Arachne. It's been a long time since we've replenished new Nissan species. Every time a new species is born, they'll be eaten by the Arachne after growing to a certain stage. There's nothing we can do." "What spider demons?" Chapter 1141. "Who is she?" The female crypt demon looked at Weena. Weena immediately grew nervous. She looked at Qin Zhao blankly. "We came together," Qin Zhao said. "She's injured. Can you help me take care of her?" Weena finally heaved a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Qin Zhao would kill her directly. "If I can help you get rid of the spider demons, can you give me 2 Nissan breeds?" "Sure." "Now?" "Of course, the sooner the better," the female crypt demon said. "Then take me there. Also, tell me what's going on with the spider demons." "The spider demons have existed together with our history. They always wander around our nests and are especially fond of the Nissan breeds we rear," the female crypt demon said. The female crypt demon said, "Every once in a while, our Nissan breeds would be attacked by Arachne. Many times the Nissan breeds almost went extinct because of this. Can't you protect the breeding Nissan breeds?" "We've protected them, but the Nissan species are free-range. They will form their own groups, and we can't always send our own people to follow them. The Nissan species will often run to remote places, and those places are often very dangerous. The female crypt demon paused. Some places lead to the abyss. Their scent will be smelled by the spider demons in the abyss, and they'll be hunted by them. Since you can keep the Nissan breeds from going extinct for so long, you must also frequently get rid of the spider demons, right? Can't you get rid of them this time? There are simply too many arachne this time. If we were to fight them directly, I might lose almost all of my offspring. Moreover, there are big arachne crawling out of the abyss this time. I've already sent some of my offspring to probe them, but none of them returned. Weena sat on Lot's back. She also heard the conversation between Qin Zhao and the female crypt demon. To her, the spider demons couldn't even get rid of the crypt demons. It was even more impossible for Qin Zhao to do it alone. However, Qin Zhao didn't seem to realize this problem. After entering the entrance of the ruins, there was no light at all. Everything was in darkness. There wasn't even a signal. This made Weena very anxious. In an unsafe environment, it was easy for people to lose control of their emotions. Moreover, the scorching heat underground would also cause one's thoughts to be muddled. What are the arachne like? Their bodies are very large. Their larvae are about the same size as the largest among us, while adult arachne can reach 3 times our size. The arachne that appeared near our lair this time is led by a large arachne. That arachne is at least 10 times our length when its limbs are spread out. Qin Zhao gasped. So big! What kind of monster was this? Winnie listened to them from behind. It was as if she was listening to a fairy tale. According to the crypt demon's average length of 4.5 meters, 10 times their body length would be equivalent to 45 meters long. It was unimaginable what kind of monster it would be. After walking for 30 minutes, a light appeared in front of them. The light surprised Qin Zhao. Crypt demons were creatures that hated light, but there was light in their nests. But soon, he realized that it was a river of lava. This was a huge karst cave, and it was extremely large. Qin Zhao grinned. Even if he fell into the lava river, he would probably kneel down. Because Qin Zhao had the golden key, he could adapt to an environment that wasn't suitable for humans in a short time. But this didn't mean that he could instantly adapt to the temperature in the lava. The lava would kill Qin Zhao instantly. He wouldn't even have a chance to struggle. These crypt demons didn't hate light. What they hated was sunlight. But this was understandable. After all, Qin Zhao remembered that the crypt demons used to be vampires. They also inherited the vampire's aversion to sunlight. Soon, Qin Zhao realized that he was wrong. This wasn't the lair of the crypt demons. It was the arachne's lair. Qin Zhao discovered some huge creatures that looked like spider crabs in the lava. These should be the so-called arachne. The arachne's body was completely red. Its 8 long and thin limbs stood in the lava. It turned out that their bodies weren't as long as Qin Zhao thought. Instead, their limbs were more than 10 meters long. Their bodies were actually about the same size as the crypt demons. Not only could they survive in the lava, but they could also climb on the walls. However, they had a pair of huge pincers in front of them. They were very thick. When they discovered the approaching crypt demons, the 2 arachne immediately attacked them. The crypt demons also charged up and started fighting them. The male crypt demons had hard outer bones to protect them, but the arachne's huge pincers could still easily crush their bones. The arachne's limbs were also very sharp. They could also easily pierce through the male crypt demon's shells. Soon, a few crypt demons were killed. But the crypt demons still had the advantage in numbers. So, the 2 arachne were still killed by the crypt demon's attacks. Qin Zhao went to the arachne's corpse and checked it. We can only send you up to here. If you go deeper, you'll easily attract big arachne. It's up to you now. Winnie looked at Qin Zhao. She was a bit afraid. These crypt demons were going to leave both her and Qin Zhao here. She had some understanding of the crypt demons and knew that they could communicate. But these arachne behaved like wild beasts. She couldn't communicate at all. If she was left here, she would definitely die a horrible death. Qin Zhao walked into the cave. Lute jumped in with Winnie. How are you going to deal with the arachne? Winnie asked. Kill them, of course, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. But you're just one person. Most of the time, I deal with problems alone. This is different from the problems you've faced in the past. There's no difference. Qin Zhao turned to look at the entrance of the cave. The female crypt demon and her offspring hadn't left yet. Why aren't the Arachne here yet? Qin Zhao called out. You have to make noise to attract the Arachne out of the lava. Their vision is bad, but their hearing is very good. Fine. Qin Zhao took out a grenade from somewhere and threw it into the lava in the distance. Boom! The lava splashed red with red water. Qin Zhao threw another one. The effect was obvious. A Arachne immediately jumped out of the lava. The Arachne didn't attack Qin Zhao immediately. Instead, it used its huge pincers to knock on the shell on its back. What is it doing? Chapter 1142. Very soon, Arachne began to emerge from the surrounding lava rivers. They came in all sizes. Winnie was in complete despair. Clenching his fists, Chen Zhao faced dozens of spider demons. Suddenly, an Arachne pounced at Chen Zhao. Its huge claws swiped at Chen Zhao. In Winnie's eyes, the huge spider demon's claws were about to hit Chen Zhao. It could slap Chen Zhao to death. But the moment the claws grabbed Chen Zhao, he suddenly opened his arms. The claws were pushed away. The spider demon's claws couldn't close again. Crack! Chen Zhao tore the pincer off. Winnie's eyes widened as she watched the scene in shock. Disbelief was written all over her face. The spider demon's claws sprayed white liquid. The white liquid sprayed on Chen Zhao's body, but he felt very strange. The liquid seemed to be being absorbed by his body. The texture was very strange. Chen Zhao felt refreshed. So good. He was almost infatuated with the feeling. Chen Zhao tried his best to break the spider demon's claws. More liquid sprayed on his body. Chen Zhao smeared some white liquid on his hand and took a sip. The white liquid was as sweet as honey. Just then, the spider demon raised its sharp limbs and stabbed at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao kicked and broke the limbs. At the same time, he shot the broken limbs up through the spider demon's lower abdomen. The spider demon was quickly killed. Winnie's eyes were filled with shock. One had to know that even the crypt demons would need several of them to kill one of them. But Chen Zhao had easily killed one. After one of their companions was killed, the other spider demons became very excited. Chen Zhao bathed in the white liquid. The essence of the white liquid seeped into his skin, which also excited him. Another spider demon charged over. Chen Zhao was in a state of extreme excitement right now. He charged at the spider demon without any regard for his own safety. Winnie had thought that it was suicide. After all, the difference in size was too big. Plus, the spider demon had a hard shell to protect itself. But Chen Zhao shattered the spider demon's front claws and stabbed a piece into the spider demon's main body. Winnie finally understood why Chen Zhao had the courage to come here alone. Why could he make a deal with the crypt demons? This guy was simply a monster. Chen Zhao killed the two spider demons and absorbed the white liquid in their bodies. He even dug out their flesh and squeezed the liquid out. Suddenly, a boulder weighing more than 10 tons was hurled over from afar. Be careful! Vinny shouted in alarm. The 10-ton boulder smashed toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao immediately controlled the dark serum. The dark serum under his feet suddenly expanded, but it was unavoidably contaminated by the surrounding lava. However, the strange thing was that the dark origin liquid did not evaporate. The lava was not extinguished by the dark original fluid. The dark serum and magma fused together. Under Chen Zhao's control, it turned into a red and black blade. He easily cut the boulder into two halves. Weena's face was filled with disbelief. What was going on? Chen Zhao was also surprised. He didn't know that the dark serum could fuse with lava. At this time, a giant Arachne crawled out from the depths of the lava river and onto the cavern wall. The Arachne's main body was more than 10 meters long. Each of its limbs was more than 20 meters long. Its two claws were like hammers striking the ground. This should be the big arachne. It was the one who'd thrown the boulder. It was obvious how strong it was. It was really too big. Qin Zhao looked at the big arachne. He could feel his blood boiling. There seemed to be something about this arachne that was attracting him. Qin Zhao charged at the big arachne without a care. The arachne along the way immediately stopped Qin Zhao. But right now, Qin Zhao seemed to be possessed. It was an instinctive impulse. He didn't even care about the arachne that came to stop him. The liquid formed by the dark serum and magma turned into countless strange-shaped blades. This was a real mountain of knives and a sea of fire. Instantly, dozens of arachne were cut open. At the same time, the dark serum seeped into their shells and extracted the dark serum from their bodies. Qin Zhao charged to the big arachne and tore its claws apart. Weena thought that this would be a thrilling battle. But the result was far beyond her expectations. It was a one-sided slaughter. When the big arachne appeared, it indeed displayed terrifying power. But Qin Zhao was even more terrifying. He tore open the arachne's shell. Qin Zhao saw a golden substance in the arachne's shell. It looked like magma. It was like crab paste and gave off an alluring fragrance. The big arachne wasn't completely dead yet. It tried to attack Qin Zhao with its claws. But Qin Zhao just laid it on the golden substance and stuffed it into his mouth. Compared to it, Qin Zhao was more like a man-eating monster. The golden substance was the same as the white liquid, but it was purer. Qin Zhao felt the power of the earth. This power filled every corner of Qin Zhao's body. It was as if every cell was absorbing the golden substance excitedly. Qin Zhao burped, but he was still stuffing the golden substance into his mouth. He didn't want to waste a single bit. He wanted to take all of the big arachne's power. It was the essence from the abyss. Whether it was the crypt demon at the entrance, or Weena watching at the scene, they were all frightened by the scene. Compared to the arachne, Qin Zhao was clearly scarier. Around him, there was a substance that was intertwined with darkness and flames. It was like a liquid, constantly churning. All the arachne were killed by the liquid. This was the power of the earth. Qin Zhao felt it, but it wasn't enough. Not enough, far from enough. This was the essence of the earth. Qin Zhao suddenly understood what Old Turtle had said before. Go to the depths of the earth and comprehend it. This was the essence of the earth. But the big arachne's earth essence wasn't enough for Qin Zhao. The glutton devoured all of the big arachne's flesh. Only an empty shell was left. Qin Zhao glanced at the upstream of the magma river. It was surging out from the depths of the cave. It was also where the big arachne had come out. Qin Zhao really wanted to charge in. But he wasn't confident that he could leave alive. Even if he absorbed the earth essence from the big arachne, it was only enough to satisfy his appetite. But Qin Zhao only had a preliminary understanding of the emptiness of the earth. In the end, Qin Zhao gave up on the idea of entering the magma river. Right now, he couldn't resist the heat of the magma. Perhaps he should continue training. With the Golden Key's ability to adapt and evolve, Qin Zhao believed that as long as he continued training, he could get used to the magma's temperature in no time. Chapter 1143. Qin Zhao returned to the entrance of the cave. All the crypt demons were even more wary of Qin Zhao. They couldn't see anything, but they knew what had just happened. Qin Zhao had slaughtered all the invading spider demons, including the big spider demon that he couldn't handle. When can I get what I want? Qin Zhao asked. Wait, the female crypt demon said. We need to enter the nest of the Nissan species. The male crypt demon started to enter the cave. There was a tunnel in the other corner of the cave. A while later, the crypt demons brought out some baby Nissan species. 2 of the Nissan pups were sent to Qin Zhao. This is our promise. You need the Nissan species. Qin Zhao picked up the 2 baby Nissan species. Most animals were quite cute when they were young. The Nissan species were the same. They were pink and tender, looking like domestic pigs. Oh, if there are more spider demons next time, I'll be happy to help you clean them up, Qin Zhao said. Even though Qin Zhao hadn't completely understood the earth, absorbing the earth essence from the big spider demon still improved him greatly. It was a real improvement. It was as if all the cells in his body were alive. The feeling was similar to falling from a high place. But it wasn't exactly the same. They were two completely opposite feelings. But they could both make his cells alive. Falling from a high place made his body feel light, as if he was going to ride the wind to the west. But the earth essence made Qin Zhao feel heavy, as if he was a huge rock. Winnie followed Qin Zhao out of the crypt demon's nest. The crypt demon sent the two to the door. Qin Zhao sent Winnie to where she'd parked her four-wheeled motorcycle. At the same time, he drove 12 kilometers away. Okay, Miss Police, I'll send you out of this restricted area and then call for help. Also, for the sake of your wrath, you better watch your mouth. Then Qin Zhao turned and left. Klaus parked the car where Qin Zhao had gotten off. He saw Qin Zhao return with the two piglets. Klaus was a bit confused. Qin Zhao had gone out for an entire afternoon and only brought back 2 piglets. Of course, Klaus didn't understand, but he didn't think too much about it. When he reached the headquarters, it was already midnight. However, he told Klaus to fly him to the crypt demon ruins. Klaus, are you coming in with me or staying here? Back in Las Vegas, Qin Zhao wasn't familiar with the crypt demon's lair, and there was quite a grudge between them. Therefore, Qin Zhao didn't want Klaus to take the risk. However, Qin Zhao wasn't worried about the crypt demons here. At least there wouldn't be any conflicts. Klaus had been here before, so there wouldn't be any danger. Guild leader, I can't stand the heat. I'll stay here. All right. Qin Zhao could understand that not everyone could adapt to such a hot environment. Qin Zhao carried the piglet into the nest. Soon, he encountered the patrolling crypt demons. Qin Zhao's scent was rather familiar to the crypt demons. The crypt demon took the initiative to lead the way. Qin Zhao followed the crypt demon and soon arrived at the underground pyramid. The old crypt demon appeared at the entrance of the pyramid. He smelled the little piglet in Qin Zhao's arms and immediately trotted over. Human, is that a Nissan in your arms? Yes, 2 young ones. Is that okay? Yes, of course. That's great. The old crypt demon was very happy. Qin Zhao put the piglet down. Oh, I heard that the Nissan species attract arachne, right? Human, you know about arachne? I've encountered arachne before, Qin Zhao said. That's right, the old crypt demon answered. We also raised Nissan species in the past, and arachne had a huge impact on their extinction. How about this? Qin Zhao said. I'll give you a way to contact me. If you encounter arachne, you can tell me. I can help you for free. Human, you want arachne, right? Yes. Qin Zhao didn't deny it. Our race has a way to find arachne. Oh? A way to find arachne? Qin Zhao's eyes brightened. Arachne's dung is the food of the earth locust, which is the food of the Nissan species, and arachne like to eat the Nissan species, the old crypt demon said. For a long time in the past, our race didn't have any Nissan species, so we could only rely on the earth locust to survive. That's why we would search for traces of arachne. Places where arachne appear will usually leave their dung, so our race is very sensitive to arachne's scent. Especially in our race, there are a few races that can detect extremely thin traces of arachne in the air through their dung. If arachne enters our nest, we'll discover it immediately. We also know the locations of some shallow arachne nests. Over the past thousands of years, we've found many. How deep does this place lead to? Qin Zhao asked. Very deep. Using your human measurement unit, we've already found a depth of 10,000 meters. Qin Zhao thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. The crypt demon race wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. Without enough space to move around and a large enough ecological chain, they wouldn't be able to sustain the survival and reproduction of the race. Therefore, there must be an even larger underground transportation network here. However, even our race is unable to descend any deeper into the region. If I want to go down, will there be any problems? Since you want to chase arachne, you definitely won't be afraid of them. But the deeper you go, the higher the temperature will be. There will also be other dangerous creatures. Arachni aren't the only dangerous creatures deep underground. There are also complicated underground caves. Your human senses are very weak and can't sense the direction. Qin Zhao thought about it. This was indeed a troublesome thing. The deeper he went, the higher the temperature, but the temperature was actually the least of Qin Zhao's worries. Russia had once excavated a cave that was more than 12 kilometers deep. The temperature at the bottom of the cave reached 180 degrees. This temperature might be fatal to most creatures, but Qin Zhao could endure it. But it was precisely the direction that became the biggest problem. Without Peugeot, it was easy for human senses to get lost. This was a basic human sense and couldn't be changed. Even well-trained soldiers couldn't change it. Unless they had a superbrain that could remember all the characteristics of the path. But I can help you draw a map, the old crypt demon said. You can draw? Chapter 1144. Qin Zhao suspected that if the old crypt demon could study further, he could definitely get a degree. Oh, you humans seem to like spider meat, the old crypt demon said. The old crypt demon said, although we don't like arachne meat and find it disgusting, you humans like it very much. How do you know? Did you forget that humans used to live here? Qin Zhao just remembered that some human scholars had been locked up here. The old crypt demon's knowledge was also taught by those human scholars. If you want, I'll get some for you. You have crypt demon meat here? I just killed 2 spider demons 2 days ago, the old crypt demon said. Their race was much stronger than the crypt demons in Las Vegas. At least, they definitely outnumbered the crypt demons in Las Vegas. Give it all to me. I'll try. A while later, the crypt demon took out the dismembered spider meat. Qin Zhao also chatted with the old crypt demon about many things. They had a common understanding that working together was more beneficial than being enemies. They didn't have any conflicts of interest. The supernatural organization could give them some help. When necessary, they could also become the organization's combat power. When Qin Zhao returned home, it was already past 2 in the morning. Qin Zhao took the spider meat and put it in the space crevice. Recently, Blackie had been busy building his new home on the beach. Qin Zhao was used to living with Blackie. He also hoped that Blackie would move in with him. To live with Qin Zhao. Blackie also knew some human secrets. When both Qin Zhao and Fei Lai were in the bedroom, he wouldn't barge in recklessly. Plus, Qin Zhao and Blackie were used to doing research together. It didn't matter if it was magical or medical. Qin Zhao entered the space crevice. Blackie was instructing the inferior demons to load some materials. After the materials were packed, Qin Zhao transported them to the beach. Qin Zhao, why are you here today? I killed some underground creatures today. I heard they're delicious, so I'm studying them to make sure they don't have any negative side effects. Oh? Underground creatures? What kind? Let's talk in the lab first. Qin Zhao took out a spider's limb. This creature is like an enlarged spider crab, but they have a pair of huge pincers that can reach up to 50 meters long. These creatures also have a milky white liquid that can slightly increase my power. The white liquid should be their blood, but the effect isn't obvious with the blood of a dozen or so spider demons. Qin Zhao took out a spider demon's limb and said, "This creature is like an enlarged spider crab." As he spoke, he extracted a small piece of flesh from the arachne's limb and placed it in a test tube, mixing it with the liquid. Qin Zhao had purchased a large number of medical machines in the lab for his and Blackie's research. In the space crevice, Blackie could use any equipment. After analyzing the components, Blackie handed a report to Qin Zhao. The flesh of this arachne is extremely nutritious and very beneficial to you humans, Blackie said. There's also a substance similar to crab amino acid, but it's different. This amino acid is very active. I soaked my bones in it and found that this amino acid can absorb other substances in the liquid and repair the bones. Oh? Qin Zhao was surprised. Amino acid was a chemical, but many plants and animals were rich in amino acids. The first amino acid he'd successfully extracted was from winter bamboo shoots. However, because amino acids were extracted from different plants and animals, there would be some differences in function. If some edible amino acids were added to dishes, they would become extremely delicious. Of course, synthetic amino acids were not suitable for consumption. Natural amino acids were the ultimate taste that humans pursued. For example, the reason why some seafood would taste so delicious after cooking was because it contained rich natural amino acids. After humans ate amino acids, they would not be absorbed directly. Instead, they would be broken down into small molecules by digestive enzymes in the stomach. Then, they would enter other organs through the bloodstream and be recombined into proteins before being absorbed by the human body. Why did people with internal functional injuries need to eat seafood for a long time? It was because many kinds of seafood were rich in amino acids. Amino acids could repair the liver and other parts. Moreover, this repair was selective. The low molecules after amino acids were broken down would remain in the bloodstream. Whatever protein an organ needed, it would automatically absorb the low molecules in the bloodstream and recombine in the organ. Therefore, some seafood was the first choice to nourish the body. However, pregnant women were not recommended to eat it because their body functions were not stable due to pregnancy reactions. If they consumed too much amino acids, it would worsen pregnancy reactions. Therefore, they could only eat little or no seafood. Some pharmaceutical companies made shark bone powder. It was quite effective for bone injuries. Qin Zhao and Blackie spent the entire night in the lab, especially analyzing and studying the amino acids of this crab. Qin Zhao found that the amino acids were very effective for bone repair. With sufficient nutrients, the effect was more than 10 times better than the body's natural recovery. Moreover, after absorbing the amino acids, the bones would become tougher. It was almost an instant effect for patients with osteoporosis. Good stuff! Chen Zhao exclaimed. Chen Zhao thought of Risvar's injury. It was a good chance for him to test it. Of course, Chen Zhao was not doing human experiments for no reason. He had to make sure there would be no side effects first. Then he could experiment. Qin Zhao and Blackie thought for a long time and named the substance bone amino acids. The next day, when Fei Lai woke up, she realized that Qin Zhao was not in bed. But before she could wash up, she smelled a strong seafood smell in the air. Fei Lai frowned. She thought that an inferior demon had made some seafood. She grumbled inwardly. She couldn't eat seafood because she was pregnant. Why would an inferior demon make seafood? But when she went to the kitchen, she realized that Chen Zhao was making seafood soup. Chen, how come you're making breakfast? Chen Zhao handed a bowl of seafood soup to Fei Lai. Here, drink it. What seafood is this? It's not seafood, but it tastes like crab. Fei Lai tasted it. The freshness spread in her mouth. Phew! So delicious. Chen, what's this made? Chapter 1145. Darling, I want more. Give me more. Sorry, darling, I can't. Qin Zhao covered the pot. You can't drink too much. Qin Zhao pushed Fei Lai out of the kitchen. She came out unwillingly. On the other hand, after Jerlin woke up, Qin Zhao filled a big bowl for her. Just then, Evely came too. Evely came especially early these days. Because Qin Zhao was very busy every day. He was almost free in the mornings. So, Evely came early. Every time she thought about how Qin Zhao had taken 10 million from her, she felt depressed. She was probably the most miserable world champion in the world. Forget it. Thinking about the test last night, Evely lost her courage again. It smells so good. Evely entered the house and smelled the tempting aroma. Evely, you're here. Come and try my seafood soup. Delicious. What crab is this? Sea crab. Evely rolled her eyes. You said it's seafood soup? Of course, I know it's sea crab, but what kind? I'll get the chef to prepare some too. I can't buy it, Qin Zhao said. It wasn't the first time Evely had eaten ingredients that she couldn't buy from Qinzhao. She'd been eating lunch at Qinzhao's house every day, so she'd already eaten many ingredients that couldn't be bought from the market. Of course, she still coaxed and pestered Qinzhao to get some ingredients. In the past, Evely wouldn't have imagined that she'd come into contact with such fresh ingredients. She didn't know how to differentiate food from food. More? Give me some. This kind of crab is not suitable for you to eat. This kind of crab will increase the weight and toughness of your bones. If you have some bone problems, you can eat more, but it will also increase the weight of your bones and slow down your swimming speed. Of course, the effect was actually very small. It might only be 0.1 seconds. However, for any athlete in a racing event, 0.01 seconds was a crucial time. For your food, I should consider retiring early. Of course, this was just a joke. All athletes were pursuing a longer career. Most of those who retired early did so for various reasons. Very few athletes say, "I've earned enough money, so I don't want to compete anymore." There were also some athletes who had made too much money, which caused them to lose their conscience. They began to squander money and neglect training. The final result was a serious decline in their competitive condition, and they had to choose to retire. Evely, on the other hand, was very competitive. She did not want to end her career prematurely. Moreover, as long as she was still in the sports world, she had the highest moment of glory. Just like every actor hoped to become a superstar. Which superstar is willing to stay away from the camera? Who didn't want to be the center of attention forever? In the afternoon, Qinzhao went straight to Risfar's house. Dell was there too. When he saw Qinzhao walk in with the box, he snatched it away immediately. "Dell, this isn't for you." Dell knew very well that every time Qinzhao brought food, it was always addictive. Whether it was wine, ingredients, or fruits. Dell was sure that Qinzhao would always provide the best. Dell did not care so much. The moment he opened the box, the rich aroma of crab meat wafted over. "Dell, put it down." "Qin gave it to me." My chest is starting to hurt again." Seeing that Dell had snatched his thing, Risfar was furious. "You're right." He also knew that Qinzhao's gift was definitely good. "Chen, where's mine?" "It's in my trunk," Qinzhao said. "Take it when you go back. It's very good for Johnny's injuries. Ronnie and Vera can eat it too. It's good for their development." "Yummy." Dell grabbed a piece of crab meat and stuffed it into his mouth. Qinzhao sat down before Risfar. "Johnny, if Dell eats your portion, there won't be any left. This crab meat can cut the time you spend in the wheelchair by half." Risfar nodded. "You're right. Dell, you heard me. If you don't give it back, I'll tear your house down." Dell's and Risfar's manors were less than 100 meters apart, so they often visited each other. "Tear it down. I want to live in a hotel now." "Oh, I heard from Dell that you suggested the renovation of the hotel. Is that right?" Risfar asked. "Yes," Qinzhao answered. If it was someone else's suggestion, Risfar might not accept it. On the other hand, Risfar trusted Qinzhao's suggestion. "See? I told you it was Chen's suggestion. Okay, let's do it." Actually, in China, many architects combined feng shui. This was because some elements of feng shui matched the characteristics of buildings. Feng shui could also be explained in a scientific way. "I'm leaving now. Dell, come with me to get the crab meat." "Oh, Dell, I'll be right back." Dell followed Qinzhao. After a few dozen meters, he asked impatiently, "Chen, did Master agree to take me as a disciple?" Qinzhao glanced at Dell. "This is her address. Go find her yourself." "I've already told her, but she said she needs to check your talent first. If you have the talent, she's willing to take you in as a disciple. If you don't, then don't mention it again. Also, before you have a master, don't call her master. You can't just call her master like that." "Okay, I'll go now." "You just told Johnny that you'll be right back. Now you're leaving him aside? Then when do I go?" "Decide." "I'm leaving." "Wait, where's my crab meat?" Oh, I forgot. Qin Zhao took out a box of unprocessed crab meat from the trunk. Why is it so little? It's more nutritious than the taste. Share it with Faith when you go back. Don't finish it all by yourself. I'm asking you why Risfar has so much more than me. He's injured. You're not. That's not fair. Okay, I'm really leaving this time. Ignoring Dell's complaints, Chen Zhao got into the car and drove away. Then he took out his phone and called Li Qing. Auntie Li, I already told Dell. He should go find you in a few days. Dell isn't a bad person. If he has the opportunity, Auntie Li, why don't you consider it? Qin Zhao's main concern was that Li Qing was all alone. Her son and daughter-in-law had both died in a car accident. She had to consider someone to take care of her when she died. In China, a disciple was like a son. Chapter 1146. The next day, Dell went to the address Qin Zhao had given him. But he didn't go alone. He brought Fisher with him. Fisher, do you remember what I said? Remember. When you see a grandma with black hair and eyes like Uncle Qin, you have to call her grandmaster in Chinese. Soon, the car stopped in front of the motel. Dell carried Fisher out of the car and went to the counter. Checking in? How many rooms? Ethan asked, looking up at Dell. No, I'm not checking in, Dell said. I'm looking for Miss Li Qing. Can you call her out for me? Ethan couldn't help but raise his head again and study Dell carefully. He thought to himself, could Li Qing have offended this man? Who are you? Why are you looking for Li? Something. What? Dell was unhappy to see Ethan asking so many questions. Why should I tell you? Li is my employee. She won't be soon, Dell said proudly. Dell's answer made Ethan even more certain that Dell was here for trouble. Li didn't come to work today. Come tomorrow. Give me her address. I'll go find her. How do I know where she lives? Actually, Li Qing lived in the motel. Because of Qin Zhao, Ethan took special care of Li Qing. But on the other hand, it was also because of Li Qing's personality. She worked hard in the hotel, and she saved Ethan's life. Thus, Ethan was also very concerned about Li Qing. He didn't care who the man before him was. Even if the police came, he would still protect her. Dad, this grandpa is lying, Fisher said. Dell looked at Ethan. He was unhappy, but he still said patiently, Listen, old man. If you give me her address, the 1,000 is yours. Ethan was even more unhappy. He didn't even look at the 1,000. Do I look like someone who needs $1,000? What do you want? I said that Li didn't come today and she won't come tomorrow. Also, you're not welcome here. Do you know who I am? I just need to say the word and I can buy this hotel. Why don't you buy it for me to see? This is my territory, get out of here. At this moment, Li Qing came downstairs. Ethan, what happened? Li Qing walked to the counter and saw Dell. Why are you here? Dell put Faith on the ground. Greetings, Master. Grand Disciple greets Grand Master. Faith Shui had practiced these words for an entire day. Li Qing was dumbfounded. So was Ethan. What was this? Ethan scratched his head. He had thought that Dell was looking for trouble. But if this was considered looking for trouble, this method of looking for trouble was too unique. Or were they Li Qing's juniors? However, did the Chinese have such a strange custom of meeting their elders? Moreover, these two people, one big and one small, were definitely white. Or were they of mixed blood? Faith was a mischievous child. She raised her head and looked at Li Qing with teary eyes. Li Qing's heart trembled when he met Faith Shui's eyes. She's your daughter? Yes, Master. Get up first. I haven't agreed to take you as my disciple. Master, if you don't agree, I won't get up, Dell said resolutely. Yes, don't get up, Faith repeated. Your daughter was born with wisdom eyes. She's good for cultivation. As for you, Li Qing looked at Dell. It's not that you can't cultivate, but your talent is mediocre. If you want to continue on this path, you'll probably be mediocre for the rest of your life. Dell immediately said, Master, Faith's eyes were born with malformed eyes. Qin cured her eyes. Oh, is it Mr. Qin? Li Qing looked at Faith. Her love for talent had risen. Get up first. Master, will you take me as your disciple? Get up first. Dell hesitated for a long time, still waiting for Li Qing's words. Just then, Faith stood up and pulled Dell up. Dad, Grandmaster definitely wants to take me in. There must be some test. Dell looked at Li Qing, who nodded. This little girl was young, but her mind was bright and she was very clever. She was indeed a rare talent. If she could inherit Qingyi sect, she might be able to make it flourish. Mr. Ethan, I'll take them to the back for a while. I'll ask for an hour's leave. Master, I have a hotel. You can go there. You don't have to do anything. Dell didn't like Ethan. Li Qing glanced at Dell. Don't mention this again. I won't leave the hotel. Dell shut up, feeling like he was asking for trouble. Ethan looked at Dell, gloating. Then he said to Li Qing, Go. Li Qing took Dell and Faith to the backyard. Ethan picked up the phone. Qin, a father and daughter came to the hotel to find Li. They mentioned you. Who are they? You know that Auntie Qing has some ghost catching and demon exorcising abilities. That night, I asked her to go to his hotel to exorcise ghosts. Then he felt that she was very capable and wanted to learn from her. Oh, where are they now? Did she agree? I don't know. Auntie Qing took them to the backyard. Ethan hesitated, wondering if he should sneak over. Li Qing brought Dell and Faith to the backyard. You're Dell, right? Yes, Master. I'm Li Qing, the current successor of Qingyi sect in China's Taimu Mountain. There are 3 rules in our sect. Don't use our spells to do evil, don't rape, and don't cheat. You might be able to do it. Master, I can do it. Dell answered Li Qing's question without even thinking. What kind of question was that? Even without the rules, he wouldn't do such things. Also, your talent is mediocre. I'll teach you a spell. If you can learn it in 7 days, you'll become an official disciple of Qingyi sect. Otherwise, our fate ends here. Dell looked troubled. Master, is it very difficult? It's the most basic spell, Yin Yang I. Li Qing said. This spell isn't unique to our sect. Basically, all warlocks know this spell. If you can't even learn Yin Yang I, you're really not suitable for it. Fine. Please teach me, Master. This is the incantation. Take it and learn it yourself. Looking at the dense Chinese words, Dell got a headache. His current level of Mandarin was limited to his spoken language. He knew nothing about writing. Master, it's all Chinese. Chapter 1147. Dell looked at the incantation with a bitter expression. How was he supposed to practice this? He couldn't even understand it. Dad, you're so stupid. Doesn't Uncle Qin know? Ask him. Dell slapped his forehead. That's right. Qin Zhao knew and he could teach him too. Dell immediately drove to Mirror Lake. When he reached Mirror Lake, Faith had already forgotten about her mission. She charged into the mansion. Jerlin, I'm here! Seeing that there was no one in the living room, Faith ran to the front yard. Seeing Jerlin playing in the lake, she jumped in without even taking off her clothes. Walter, who'd been dozing off on the shore, immediately jumped in. Walter was like a protective dog. It didn't matter if the kids in the water needed help or not. As long as the parents weren't around, he would follow. This was what he'd been taught since he was young. Dell walked in and saw Qin Zhao and Fei Lai lying in the sun. Chen, Fei Lai, Dell greeted. How was it? Did it go well? Qin Zhao asked. Qin, come here for a second. Just say it. Dell glanced at Fei Lai. Does Fei Lai know? She knows more than you do. Okay. Dell took out the incantation. This is the incantation my master gave me. Oh, I succeeded. Not really. Master told me to learn this in a week, or he won't take me in. Qin Zhao glanced at the incantation. It was a simple incantation. Okay, it was simple for Qin Zhao. Not to mention Qin Zhao's current level. Just the content on it was easy to understand. Pressing the Lingshu acupuncture point with his index finger, he filled his head with qi. Then he focused on his eyes. This mnemonic formula was introduced and explained in the most common vernacular. If it was a little more profound, it would be written in classical Chinese, or even in the more obscure Taoist narrative form. Even Qin Zhao found it hard to read, let alone Dell. Qin, help me translate the content and then teach me. Qin Zhao translated the incantation into English and recited it. That simple? Yes, but whether you can learn it or not depends on your ability. Then how do I know if I've mastered it? Let's go find a graveyard. If you can master this yin-yang eye, you will definitely be able to see anything unclean. Dell followed Qin Zhao's translation and turned to Qin Zhao. Qin, I feel like I don't need to practice at all. It's very simple. Very good. Since you're so confident, go to the graveyard tonight and try your yin-yang eye. Qin, come with me tonight. I don't dare to go alone. If a spirit controller doesn't even dare to go to a graveyard, how can he be a spirit controller? I'm not a proper spiritualist yet. Qin, come with me. I'm not going. Qin Zhao rejected Dell's request without hesitation. Wasn't it better to rub Feilai to sleep? Why would he follow Dale to the cemetery? Qin, come with me. I really don't dare to go alone. Qin, just go with Dell. Feilai felt that Dell was quite pitiful. Qin Zhao's face was gloomy. He should have just found an evil spirit. Why did she have to accompany Dell to the cemetery? Qin Zhao was confused. Dell didn't leave at all. He dragged Qin Zhao so that he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. After dinner, Qin Zhao was dragged into the car. Fei stayed at home. Feilai could take care of her and Jerlin could play with her. She was already so happy that she didn't want to leave at all. Qin Zhao sat in the passenger seat with a dejected expression. Because of Qin Zhao's company, Dell's expression was relaxed. Dell, just find a cemetery nearby. Of course, the nearest cemetery was at least 50 kilometers away. After all, there couldn't be a cemetery in the city. Because Qin Zhao would occasionally go to the cemetery with Blackie, he was familiar with the cemeteries in LA and the surrounding areas. Lakin Cemetery? Ever since it was built, it had been surrounded by all sorts of rumors. All sorts of supernatural events would spread from time to time. After all, it was a cemetery. It would be strange if there weren't any supernatural events. The car stopped beside the cemetery road. Qin Zhao could occasionally see some ethereal figures. They were spirits, but they were all harmless. They didn't even have their own consciousness. They were all people who'd been buried here in the past few days. They would only stay here for 3 or 4 days. Then they would completely disappear from this world. Their consciousnesses would also disappear completely. They couldn't even reach hell. Sometimes, Qin Zhao wondered if they'd gone to heaven. But Dell couldn't see them. Dell first had to learn the yin-yang eye and then go through complicated preparations to barely see their ethereal figures. Qin, I'm ready. Can we start now? If you think we can, then let's start, Qin Zhao said calmly. Dell began to focus on the direction of the graveyard. He forced his eyelids open and then started exerting force. Qin Zhao was speechless at Dell's weird behavior. Use your own thoughts, Qin Zhao said, rolling his eyes. Don't make your eyes bulge out. I'm just warming up. Don't disturb me. Qin Zhao was even more speechless. You're the one who's wrong and you're complaining that I'm noisy? I really shouldn't have come out with this asterisk shoal. More than 10 minutes later, Dell was still trying. Finally, Qin Zhao couldn't help but ask, how is it? Do you see it? Wait a bit more. It'll be done soon. Oh, there are spirits in the cemetery, right? Yes, Qin Zhao answered. He leaned against the window and looked in the direction of the cemetery. Ah, I see it. I see it. There's a woman in a black dress. She's looking over. She's noticed us. Qin Zhao saw it too, but the next sentence disappointed Dell. She's not a spirit. She's a living person. The woman walked toward Qin Zhao and Dell's car. Who are you? Why are you here so late? The woman sounded proud. Who are you? Police? Why should we answer your question? Dell said unhappily. He thought that the woman was a spirit, but he was greatly disappointed. Qin Zhao could feel that the woman in the black dress had a very powerful magic power. We're here to relax, Qin Zhao said, smiling. Relax? This is a cemetery. His parents passed away not long ago and were buried here, Qin Zhao said. He misses them, so he came to visit. Is there a problem? Dell was stunned. His parents had been dead for more than 10 years. Why would Qin Zhao lie? Chapter 1148. You're a woman and you're not scared. Why should we be scared? Dell was a simple-minded person. At least outside of business, Dell always spoke and acted without thinking. It was like this in the past, present, and future. Then whatever. The woman in the black dress looked at the two coldly and turned to leave. Crazy. Dell's voice wasn't loud, but the woman clearly heard him. She paused, but she didn't turn around to argue with Dell. Instead, she continued walking and soon disappeared into the darkness. Do you know that you just offended a witch? Qin Zhao asked with a smile. Huh? Witch? That's right. She's a witch, and a very powerful one. Why didn't you tell me? Forget it. She probably doesn't have any bad intentions. She didn't do anything to you either. Let's go. Chen, are you sure she didn't cast any curse or magic on me? No. Really? If you keep blabbering, I'll kick you out of the car and you can go back yourself. Then I won't ask any more. What do we do now? What do you mean? What do you mean? If you want to continue, then continue. If not, go home and sleep. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. Chen, how do you know that she's a witch? Of course. Do you think she's normal to appear here in the middle of the night? Maybe she's here to visit the grave. Forget it. Let's go home and sleep. No. I need to master the yin-yang eye as soon as possible. Let's not practice in the grave. I'll find an evil spirit tomorrow and send it to your house. It'll follow you every day. If you master it, you'll know immediately. No, I don't want an evil spirit. Do you want me to have nightmares if you let an evil spirit follow me? It's better than having you come to the grave every night. But faith's not safe at home. Forget it. Qin Zhao thought about it and realized that it made sense. Adults didn't care, but it wasn't good for children to interact with evil spirits. Qin Zhao's house was the same, even though he only interacted with supernatural things. However, he wouldn't let little Jerlin interact with Feilai at all. At the very least, he wouldn't let them come into contact with spirits like evil spirits that were left in the human world because of obsessions. If you want to practice the yin-yang eye next time, come to the graveyard yourself. I don't want to accompany you to the graveyard. Under a tomb in the Laken Public Offering Center. Below the tomb was a suite with all kinds of living facilities. At the same time, there were 3 people living in this tomb. One of them was Felisa, who had attacked him a few days ago, and her teacher, Sibylla. At this time, the woman in the black dress walked in from outside the tomb. Mahage, where did you go? Sibylla asked. Teacher, I saw someone outside the tomb, so I went to take a look, Mahage said. What about the other 2? Who are they? They are just ordinary people, Mahage said. Fei Sha looked at Mahage and said, Mahage, are you sure those 2 are ordinary people? Maybe they are pretending to be ordinary people, or maybe they are agents of the Magic Palace. Not really, Mahage said. They don't know me. I used some magic just now, but they didn't react at all. Mahage, the people from the Magic Palace are already in L.A., Sibylla said with concern. They're looking for us now. It's best if we don't go out. If you or Fei Sha fall into their hands, it'll be troublesome. Teacher, I understand, Mahage replied calmly. L.A. isn't safe either. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful spiritualist in L.A., and a wizard at that. Sibylla looked at his bandaged left hand. Teacher, you shouldn't have stopped me that day. If we work together, we can definitely kill that asterisk shoal. You didn't even know who he is and attacked him so casually. Are you sure the power behind him won't take revenge? Sibylla scolded. He attacked me first. He killed all the ghosts I raised. They were half a year's worth of hard work. It's fine if we're on vacation, but we're on the run now. You still want to provoke the local power? Are you afraid that you're not obvious enough? Am I just going to watch my hard work go to waste? We need to preserve our strength. We can't fight pointless battles, Sibylla said. Look at Mahage. She knows how to endure and take a step back. She won't just attack people she doesn't care about. She's she, and I'm me. Fei Sha had always disliked Mahage. They were both Sibylla's students, but Mahage was always a head above her. No matter what, Mahage always seemed to be better than her. This made Fei Sha hate Mahage. Mahage did not react to her teacher's compliment. She just stood there calmly, as if nothing had anything to do with her. Teacher, we've been hiding here for more than 10 days. When will our plan start? Mahage asked. Not yet. I hired a special bodyguard. It won't be too late to carry out our plan after he arrives. Teacher, we don't need a bodyguard. I don't think any bodyguard can protect us, Fei Sha said. Unless you can hire Superman to be our bodyguard. You're right. The bodyguard I hired is Superman, Sibylla said with a smile. Teacher, this joke isn't funny at all. He's not really Superman, but he's very strong, Sibylla said. Just then, Sibylla's phone rang. Sibylla picked it up. Huh! You're here? Okay, I got it. Send it to me. Not long after, a truck stopped outside the tomb. The worker quickly placed a metal box on the road outside the tomb and left in a hurry. Sibylla, Fei Sha, and Mahage finally came out of the tomb. Fei Sha, move it in. Fei Sha lifted a finger, and the metal box flew up. What's inside? It's so heavy. The metal box looked like an iron coffin, but it was very heavy. It probably weighed more than a ton. After returning to the tomb, Fei Sha placed the metal box in the living room. Teacher, can I open this box? Yes. Sibylla nodded. Fei Sha cast a spell, and the nails on the metal box popped open one by one. Then, the lid flew up. A tall, naked man lay inside. Why is it a man? Fei Sha and Mahage were confused. There was a bright red X tattoo on the man's chest. Is he dead? Fei Sha asked, confused. Teacher, who sent this dead man? What's he for? He's our bodyguard. Sibylla walked up and slowly scratched the man's chest with his fingernails. Chapter 1149. When the man opened his eyes, there was a murderous glint in his eyes. Sibylla shook the remote control in his hand, and the man calmed down again. Ma'am, how can I help you? Listen to my orders, Sibylla said. Any orders? Yes, ma'am, I will listen to your orders. Both Fei Sha and Mahage felt that there was something strange about this man. Previously, they felt that this man did not have any aura, as if he was dead. When he woke up, he had that cold and merciless look in his eyes. But because of a remote control, he had succumbed to his teacher. What's your name? Ma'am, I'm X9. Teacher, who is he? Fei Sha asked. Our bodyguard, Sibylla said. Him? He doesn't have any magic waves on him. Teacher, are you sure he can protect us? What abilities do you have? Sibylla looked at X9. Proficient in all combat, firearms, and all means of transportation. Expert detection and anti-detection abilities. 15 times the human limit of strength, 8 times the human limit of speed, 9 times the human limit of reaction speed, 19 times the human limit of resistance, 6 times the human limit of recovery, 20 times the human limit of vision, and no sense of fear. Fei Sha was still not convinced. Teacher, I want to test him. X9, subdue her. Don't hurt her. Whoosh! Before Fei Sha could react, X9 had already disappeared before Fei Sha's eyes. Fei Sha felt a sharp pain in her neck. X9 had already appeared behind Fei Sha and strangled her. This doesn't count. He ambushed me, Fei Sha said unwillingly. Fei Sha, a loss is a loss. Have you forgotten what I taught you? Sibylla said. If we were facing the Magic Palace, do you think those witches or agents of the Magic Palace would reason with you? Or a one-on-one fight? And the man who defeated you the other day, he has the same characteristics as X9. That man! Fei Sha's eyes suddenly exploded with anger. But before that, we need to find Rupert first. Teacher, are you sure it's okay for the three of us to meet? Mahage asked. Of course. Do you have any questions? Sibylla asked. According to the Eastern sage's explanation, after the seal is completed, Fei Sha, Rupert, and I can't meet each other, let alone touch each other. The demon souls in our bodies will merge into one the moment we touch each other, releasing the sealed demon. The demon's soul isn't a threat. The demon's soul is just a spirit. Although it also possesses great strength, it needs a body to sustain its soul after breaking the seal. So we'll prepare a body for it, a body that's decaying and on the verge of collapse. As long as the demon's soul enters this body, it will decay along with the body. We'll be able to easily defeat this demon, and we'll be able to do something that even the magic temple can't do. Teacher, I think this is too risky, Mahage said. Coward! Fei Sha looked at Mahage and said provocatively. Facing Fei Sha's provocation, Mahage remained expressionless. Did Rupert cause any trouble in the past 2 days? Qin Zhao felt that it was definitely because he'd gone to the cemetery last night that he was covered in bad luck. Anyway, he just didn't like everyone today. President, she's very obedient. Obedient? How so? Apart from practicing magic, she rarely leaves her room. How does she practice magic? Did she hurt anyone? Qin Zhao just wanted to find an excuse to punish someone. No. Then did she say anything provocative? No. I know her. She won't be so obedient. Keep an eye on her, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Whatever, I'll go to the Tower of Trials. Since his plan to find an excuse failed, Qin Zhao could only enter the Tower of Trials and vent on the monsters inside. Qin Zhao entered the 7th floor. It was a place filled with magma. The volcano in the distance continued to erupt. A large amount of magma and volcanic ash burst out from the volcano, and then splashed over an area of tens of kilometers. Just then, a ball of burning rock shot over from the distance, dragging a trail of black smoke behind it. The rock landed before Qin Zhao. Then a 10-meter-tall rock giant stood up. The rock giant's body was burning with a high temperature, and the magma was flowing on its body like its blood. Hellfire. That was the name of the rock giant. Immediately, another hellfire descended from the sky, and then another. They were like meteors, falling one after another. Qin Zhao studied the hellfire. It was very strong and there were many of them, but it didn't seem to be as difficult as the demons on the 6th floor. Just then, the hellfire attacked. A hellfire smashed toward Qin Zhao with a scorching fist. Qin Zhao also threw a punch at it. Bang! Hellfire's fist was shattered by Qin Zhao, but Qin Zhao howled in pain and took a step back. Qin Zhao looked at his left fist. It was burned. The hellfire stomped over again. Qin Zhao hurriedly used Qingyi Cloud to wrap his body with magic. With Qingyi Cloud's protection, Qin Zhao wasn't hurt anymore. The hellfire was covered in boiling rocks or magma. If Qin Zhao only used his body, he would be easily burned. However, using Qingyi Cloud would consume a lot of his mana. One had to admit that the hellfire's characteristics put Qin Zhao in unprecedented danger. Qin Zhao took out the bronze sword. Qingyi Cloud couldn't last for too long, after all. If it was just a single enemy, using Qingyi Cloud to reduce the enemy's attack power was quite effective. But if there were too many enemies, Qingyi Cloud would become a burden instead. Holding the bronze sword, Qin Zhao smashed a hellfire's head with one slash, then another. But something unexpected happened. The bronze sword was shattered. It was shattered. The bronze sword had been with Qin Zhao for a long time. He never thought it would shatter. It had accompanied Qin Zhao and defeated one strong enemy after another. Qin Zhao had never thought that the bronze sword would shatter. This caught him off guard. A hellfire fist sent him flying. Holding the broken sword, Qin Zhao didn't react at all. Just at this moment, another hellfire attacked. Qin Zhao hurriedly used the dark serum mixed with red magma to cut open another hellfire. Chapter 1150. The bronze sword was just a regular weapon, after all. Perhaps the craftsmanship was not bad, but in the end, it could not be invincible, nor could it be indestructible. Qin Zhao put away the broken sword. He'd used the bronze sword time and time again to defeat strong enemies. He'd almost forgotten. It was actually just a regular sword. The dark serum turned into the shape of a huge bronze sword, but the blade was black and red intertwined. The dark serum wasn't pure anymore. Ever since it absorbed the magma, it had been in this black and red state. It wasn't a simple mixture. It was more like a chemical reaction between the dark serum and the magma, making the two become one. But the dark serum had become even more powerful. The dark serum now couldn't be called dark serum anymore. Perhaps it should be called dark lava. The dark lava transformed into a giant sword and swept out with unparalleled might. Dozens of hellfires were cut in half at the waist. Another slash and dozens more hellfires were killed. With just 2 slashes, the hellfires had already killed over 100. But Qin Zhao found it strange that he didn't receive a notification that he'd passed. The hellfires didn't retreat because of this. In the past, as long as you killed more than 100 monsters, the monsters would retreat. But the hellfires were still attacking Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao frowned and looked around. The dark lava was powerful, but it also consumed a lot of mana. He'd killed over 100 hellfires with 2 slashes, but he'd also used up half of his mana. Ever since he'd reached ultimate transformation, his mana had been very durable. In the past, he'd needed 10 points of mana to attack, but now he could do the same with just 2 points. Qin Zhao thought about it. If he used the zither to control the stone swords, the effect probably wouldn't be good either. If he used the bronze sword to attack, it would shatter. The stone swords were too fragile. If he used it to attack enemies with flesh, it would be good. But if he used it to attack enemies with extremely hot hellfires that were also made of stone, the 12 stone swords would probably be destroyed too. So, using the dark lava to attack was clearly the best. But while the dark lava was powerful, it also consumed more mana. Plus, he didn't know how many hellfires he had to kill to pass the 7th level. He could also use a clone, but it wouldn't be good here either. After all, the strength of the doppelganger was weaker than the main body. If the main body could be scalded, the doppelganger would probably suffer even more serious burns. Perhaps he could try that move. Qin Zhao started to gather the dark lava. It wrapped around him and even seeped into his body. This was the effect of the King of Wrath's bloodline. The dark origin fluid could fuse with an abyss devil with the King of Wrath's bloodline and greatly improve their bodily functions. Qin Zhao's body turned into a strange black and red state. Some parts of his body could also change at will. Qin Zhao's arms turned into 2 blades. He moved and instantly appeared on Hellfire's shoulder. With a gentle wave, Hellfire's rock head rolled off. Qin Zhao adjusted his body so that he could get used to the feeling better. The feeling of the dark magma fusing with his body was very strange. He could clearly feel the changes in his body. However, this change did not mean that he had reached perfection. Instead, his body and nervous reactions had undergone great changes. For example, the increase in speed made it harder to control the body. If the speed of the body was faster than the reflexes, it was easy to lose control. For example, if the power was greater than the control, one move might cause the body to lose control. Qin Zhao needed to readjust and find the feeling that suited him best. The dark magma wriggled on Qin Zhao's body again, making his limbs more symmetrical. Hellfire's individual strength was the type that was neither strong nor weak. Their individual strength was stronger than other giant monsters of the same type. For example, the twisted monster on the second floor was far stronger than the twisted monster in both strength and speed. However, it was not so strong that Qin Zhao needed to go all out. Therefore, many of the battle tactics and methods that Qin Zhao was used to were not effective on Hellfires. This also forced Qin Zhao to abandon his old habits and find new ways to fight. After making some adjustments, Qin Zhao jumped onto another Hellfire. His arm turned into a 2-meter-long blade. With another slash, the Hellfire's head was smashed. Qin Zhao shook his head. It was still not the perfect form. He was going to cut open the Hellfire's head, but it was smashed instead. The result was the same, but the process was different. Smashing it would definitely use up more stamina and magic power. He had to speed up and make the blade made by the dark magma sharper. Qin Zhao kept fighting and trying in the Hellfire. In the meantime, Qin Zhao was also attacked and injured. Qin Zhao had already killed more than 200 Hellfires. It seemed that the 7th level was much more difficult than the previous 6. Qin Zhao finally found his best form. All his body movements became extremely smooth. He felt like it was his own body. Every time he killed a Hellfire, Qin Zhao would count in his heart. 793, 794, 853, 944, 999, 1000. Past the 7th level. Score D-. Save progress and leave, or enter the next floor. AD-, a very low score. Qin Zhao was already very tired. The 7th level was already so difficult. The 8th would definitely be even more difficult. So, there was no need to continue. Qin Zhao left the Tower of Trials and entered the power room to replenish his magic power. After coming out of the power room, Qin Zhao was full of energy again. The power room was like a charger for Qin Zhao's magic power. In the headquarters of the association, Qin Zhao had limitless magic power. As long as he stayed in the power room for a few minutes, he could easily fill up his magic power. Of course, the power room wasn't suitable for wartime. If it was a battle, the enemy wouldn't let Qin Zhao rest in the power room for a few minutes. Suddenly, Qin Zhao had a whimsical idea. If he installed an electric discharge device around the entire association, he could discharge electricity when needed. When needed, he would discharge electricity. His Eye of the Thunder would directly attract the electric current, and not harm his subordinates. That way, he would almost be undefeatable in the association. But if he wanted to install such a device, he probably wouldn't even be able to afford $10 million. Whatever. It was only the beginning of the year, but he'd already used up a few $1,000,000. Chapter 1151. Evely's training had already ended. 3 days later, it was time for the sports meet, which was held at the San Diego campus for a week. Qin Zhao was reluctant, but since he'd already promised right, he could only go as the leader. Fei Lai, let's go to San Diego together. Qin Zhao really didn't want to be away from home for a week and not see Fei Lai and Zhilin. So, he wanted to go with Fei Lai and Zhilin. Okay, I'll go. Qin Zhao had told Fei Lai many times already. Fei Lai really didn't understand why Qin Zhao would accept the job if he didn't want to go. Qin Zhao couldn't help it. Wright just liked to take advantage of her seniority. Wright didn't speak often, but when she did, it was usually an opportunity. Qin Zhao couldn't reject her. She'd also stayed in China for more than a decade. She knew Sun Tzu's art of war too well. She knew how to play hard to get. Qin Zhao really couldn't beat her. I'm going to San Diego tomorrow, Qin Zhao said. You go on the 27th. Qin Zhao had to go earlier because he was the leader. He couldn't go on the day of the competition. Qin Zhao had to arrange accommodations for the participating students and understand the competition process. The students were all adults, but they were still students of the school. The school still had to be responsible for them. For example, he had to manage and implement the rules and regulations during the competition. The sports day wasn't a professional sports day, but it received a lot of attention. This was because every school more or less had a few star students. For example, UCLA's Evely and Tiger. Evely didn't need to be mentioned. She was a world-class athlete. Speaking of American athletes, Evely couldn't be avoided. She was the holder of many world records and the first swimming legend to break the men's world record. Tiger was the WBA gold belt winner last year. He also received a lot of attention. Tiger's journey in the WBA had been too outstanding. He didn't lose a single one of his 13 matches. 6 of them were KO'd in the first round. His average time was less than 15 minutes. One of the famous boxers had even been hit by Tiger's heavy punches and had to retire from the boxing world. Of course, there was another reason. Last year, an underground dealer had tried to manipulate Tiger's matches. Tiger's tough counterattack was also praised by many boxing enthusiasts. They thought that he was a sportsmanlike athlete who was not afraid of power. Evely and Tiger were both star athletes. Because of their participation in the competition, there were sponsors and TV stations broadcasting it live. The other schools had many star students too. There were even 1 or 2 student athletes who were as famous as Tiger. It had to be said that the United States sports training was nurtured from a young age, and it permeated into the hearts of every citizen. In this regard, the other countries probably couldn't catch up. However, there was no way to compare them. Take China for example, the number of stadiums was different. All the stadiums and basketball courts in the country had basically been occupied by square dancing. In addition to the participating students, there were also a few cheerleaders who were going to support them. These cheerleaders were basically the most popular girls in the school. There were also some students who went to cheer for their classmates. Chen Zhao had to manage all of this. The next day, Chen Zhao went to school. There were 10 buses parked in the school's parking lot. The coaches or PE teachers of each sport were managing the students. Chen Zhao couldn't manage more than 100 students by himself. Therefore, there were still some coaches helping him. For example, Robert. He was now Chen Zhao's confidant. The little tricks that the other coaches were up to were all passed on to Chen Zhao by Robert. The coaches hated Chen Zhao to death, but they hated Robert even more. They felt that Robert was a traitor. Are the students all here? More than 10 students already said that they'll go to San Diego by themselves. Among the students who didn't report, only the track and field club is missing 1 person. Because Los Angeles wasn't far from San Diego, some students didn't want to squeeze in the buses. They wanted to drive themselves. Chen Zhao didn't care about this. They just had to be there on the day of the competition. Chen Zhao looked at the time and said, 10 more minutes. The other students can get on the bus. 10 minutes later, the late student arrived. Okay, let's go. The 10 buses drove out of the school. Chen Zhao sat on the bus at the front, resting with his eyes closed. The students on the bus were very noisy. Chen Zhao couldn't be bothered with them. They were at the most active age. Plus, they played sports, so they were full of energy. San Diego was considered a relatively large city, but the most famous thing in this city was the gangs. San Diego's gangs were also world famous. In America, each state and city had different policies. Some cities were suitable for gangs, while others weren't. San Diego was a suitable city. There were 3 powers here. One was the old mafia in San Diego, the Jarovitz family. They were originally based in New York, but they were forced to move to San Diego by the New York government's policy. They were the more law-abiding type, and many of their businesses were between the underworld and the underworld. One of them was the Mexican gang. They were also the most ferocious gang. The last one was from Colombia. It was a gang that escaped from Pablo Escobar's era. They were also called the Colombian Gang. If you're interested, you can search for Pablo Escobar on Baidu. The Colombian Gang had the weakest foundation, but they were no less ruthless than the Mexican Gang. The Mexican Gang and the Colombian Gang also had the most intense conflicts. Their businesses overlapped greatly too. For example, drugs, gambling, firearms, and prostitutes. 10 years ago, There would be fights between the two gangs almost every day. In recent years, the government's policies had changed. They'd started to manage the gangs with high pressure, so they'd been much more restrained. Suddenly, Chen Zhao smelled something. He opened his eyes and stood up. Then he started walking back. Every time he walked past a seat, he would size it up with his eyes. When he reached the last seat, his gaze fell on a tall boy. "Come with me," Chen Zhao said. Chapter 1152. "There's a problem," Chen Zhao asked. "Do you want to come with me, or do I have to force you out?" "Teacher, if you can't tell me your goal, I'll report you," the tall guy said, annoyed. "Sure, this is the principal's number, this is the police's, and this is a reporter I know. Call whichever you want," Chen Zhao said calmly. The tall guy's expression turned unnatural. "Teacher, I was just joking, but I don't know what I did wrong. I told you to come with me. Don't you understand me?" In the end, the tall guy stood up and followed Chen Zhao to sit at the very front. "Take it out," Chen Zhao said, looking at the tall guy. The tall guy looked troubled. "What? I don't want to say it again. If you continue to refuse, you're done for." Chen Zhao stared coldly at the tall guy. "Teacher, you have to think it through. School, police, you're already an adult." The tall guy's face was filled with pain. "Teacher, this isn't mine. I'm helping someone deliver it to San Diego." "Take it out," Chen Zhao yelled again. He didn't care who it belonged to. Something like this had appeared in his team. Moreover, it wasn't a small amount. Everyone knew how widespread drugs were in America. However, Chen Zhao didn't expect someone to transport drugs among the students. After all, this was a serious crime. If Chen Zhao had pointed it out just now, the tall guy's life would be completely ruined. The school would definitely expel him. More importantly, he'd face a criminal trial. Every year, the police would catch hundreds of thousands of drug traffickers. More than a third of them were students of all ages. Some people knew that it was for temporary benefits. Some people were completely kept in the dark. Chen Zhao didn't notice it when he was driving. However, the car was sealed, so Chen Zhao quickly smelled it. Compared to other drug traffickers, students were undoubtedly the safest and safest. Chen Zhao reached out and was about to take something out, but the tall guy immediately resisted. Chen Zhao pressed the tall student down on his seat. "If you continue to resist, the school will know about you." "Teacher, I can't give it to you. If I give it to you, I'm dead." "If that's the case, then go and explain to the police." Chen Zhao hated drugs deeply. This originated from his time as a doctor in China. Chen Zhao had once saved a woman. Her husband had forced his wife to sell her child and jump down from the 10th floor because he was collecting money for drugs. In Chen Zhao's opinion, it was unforgivable for anyone to touch drugs other than for medical purposes. Chen Zhao hated drugs. Moreover, if the car was inspected by the police and the student was found to be hiding or transporting drugs, Chen Zhao would also be held responsible. Chen Zhao threatened the student with his phone. The student finally gave up resisting. His body was trembling slightly. He sat on the seat and buried his head between his legs. Chen Zhao took out a bag of drugs from the student. Chen Zhao smelled it and knew what it was. It was DA, also known as ecstasy. Most of these things would flow into nightclubs, bars, nightclubs, private parties, or even the hands of students. There was even a survey that showed that 90% of high school students knew where to buy this thing. The bag weighed about 2 kilograms and contained 2,000 granules. It's worth more than $100,000. He estimated that he would be able to earn $1,000 in transportation fees for a single trip across cities. Chen Zhao crushed all the granules into powder and poured it out the window. "That's the end of the matter. Do you understand? Go back to your seat." After a 3 to 4 hour drive, the bus all arrived at Buffy Hotel in San Diego. Chen Zhao had to check in every student. Thankfully, he'd already made an appointment, so the process was rather easy. Each room was for 2 people. Chen Zhao got a suite for himself. Knock, knock. Chen Zhao's door rang. The door's open. Come in. Evely walked in and looked at Chen Zhao's luxurious suite. Chen, you really know how to enjoy life. I don't want to suffer, Chen Zhao said calmly. At least it's within my abilities. Do you want something to drink? No, how about going out and playing? I grew up in San Diego. I'm very familiar with the place. No. Chen Zhao thought of the first time he met Evely. It was on the train from San Diego to Los Angeles. That was also when he met Gaia. Of course, it wasn't a happy time. Today's free time. You can walk around. Whatever. It'll be boring if you don't go. How about we go for dinner? Okay, let's go. Just then, Robert called. Mr. Chen, can you come down for a while? A few people came to the hotel and want to take our students away. Okay, I'm coming. After hanging up, Chen Zhao said helplessly. Looks like we'll have to postpone dinner. Chen Zhao hurried to the floor where the students lived. He saw a few PE teachers and coaches standing at the door. Before them were a few gangsters who didn't look like good people. Robert, what's happening? They want to take our students away. Chen Zhao glanced at the room. It was the tall students. Guys, why are you looking for my students? Sir, we're friends with Pierre. We're here to play with him. There's a party tonight. You don't mind, right? No, I don't mind, Chen Zhao said immediately. I'm the leader of all the students. I'm in charge of where they go. Pierre is grounded because he made a mistake. He's not allowed to leave the team. Hey, Asian monkey, do you know who we are? Bang! The blabbermouth gangster's head was pressed against the wall. There was even a mark on the wall. Oh, who are you? Tell me. But by then, the gangster had already fainted. Seeing Chen Zhao attack, the other gangsters immediately charged at him. Chen Zhao punched them one by one. Every gangster's head was broken and bleeding. Robert, call the police and complain to the hotel. Why did they let these unknown people in? I hope the hotel can give us an explanation. Otherwise, our school will sue the hotel. The PE teachers, including Robert, were all shocked by Chen Zhao's ruthless methods. Chapter 1153. They'd long heard that Chen Zhao could fight. However, the teachers in the school didn't have a clear understanding of what Chen Zhao meant by fighting. Now, they probably understood. With so many gangsters, Chen Zhao felt like he was dealing with a few bugs. Okay, go back. Chen Zhao waved his hand. San Diego wasn't really a dangerous city. The gangs here usually focused on their own businesses and wouldn't attack ordinary people. Because of the government's high-pressure policies, the gangs were much more restrained. However, if someone provoked them, they'd take revenge like mad dogs. Chen Zhao didn't take it to heart. After all, he'd killed many gangs before. For example, last time in Mountain Town, he'd realized that the gang in town seemed to have bad intentions towards him. The next day, all the members of the gang had disappeared from the face of the earth. Of course, the gangs in Mountain Town were actually a bunch of small, unorthodox gangs. They were completely different from the local gangs in San Diego. Pierre spent the entire night in fear. Late at night, he received a phone call. A cold voice came from the other end. Pierre, do you think that the school can protect you? And your family? Pierre was scared out of his wits. What he feared the most was that this would happen. From the moment he'd become a drug carrier, there was no turning back. Boss Bob, I didn't plan to betray you. The things were discovered by the school's teacher. He threw them all away. Pierre tried to explain. I don't care where they are. Get out of the hotel right now and we'll settle this. Pierre's face was filled with bitterness and fear. Boss Bob, I'll think of a way to pay you back. Please let me go. If you don't get out of the hotel in 10 minutes, you'll find your house on fire tomorrow. Oh. I remember that your sister is 17 this year, right? Ha, I'll come out. I'll come out. Pierre yelled in terror. He knew very well that these vicious gangs could do anything. They were capable of anything. The moment Pierre walked out of the hotel, he was thrown into a car with a black cloth draped over him. When the black cloth was removed, Pierre was thrown out of the car. Pierre found himself in a port. There were containers all around him. Pierre soon knew where he was. This was the legendary port of San Diego. A hidden port. Although Pierre wasn't a gangster, he had heard of the port of sin in Santiago. It is said that every year more than 50,000 women and millions of illegal organs are packed into containers and shipped around the world. Other than that, a large number of firearms and drugs entered the United States through this port. However, this port had evaded the police and the spy satellites. There was a large ship docked at the port, and the container handlers were lifting the containers down. The entire harbor was bustling with activity. Then Pierre beheld Bob's bloated and hideous face, and his menacing underlings. "Hi, Pierre. Boss Bob. You're really brave. The people I sent are all in the hospital now. That wasn't done by me. It was done by a teacher from our school. I heard it's an Asian, right?" Yes, call him. I want to see him," Bob said. I don't have his number." Pierre wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He was so scared that he almost wet his pants. Ring, ring. At night, Chen Zhao was woken up by a phone call. Closing his eyes, Chen Zhao fumbled for the phone. He really should have muted it. "Hello, who's this?" "Mr. Chen, it's me, Robert. Pierre's roommate just came to find me. He said that Pierre received a call and left in a hurry. It's been an hour, and he's not back yet. He can't get through to him either." "Pierre? Which one?" "The one who was harassed by the gangsters today." "Oh, got it." Chen Zhao sat up, looking like he had just woken up. How fucking unlucky. He had thought that he could have a nice vacation in Santiago. He didn't expect to run into something like this again. As soon as Chen Zhao hung up, another call from an unknown number came in. "Hey, you're a teacher from UCLA, right?" "That's me." "Who are you?" People here call me Bob." "Of course, you can also call me Crocodile." "Sir, do we know each other?" Chen Zhao interrupted Bob. "It wasn't easy to find your number," Bob said to himself. "I had to go through many layers of connections to find your number." "Can I get to the point?" Chen Zhao said impatiently. "I want to meet you." "I don't like meeting strangers in the middle of the night," Chen Zhao said calmly. "You know, I didn't just find your number. I also found your home address." "Oh, I heard that you have a pregnant girlfriend and a cute daughter, right?" Chen Zhao scratched his head. "Tell me, what do you want?" "I said I want to meet you." "Where?" "Come out of the hotel. I have a car to pick you up." "Okay, I'm starting to look forward to our meeting." Chen Zhao took off his pajamas and changed into a suit. At the same time, he picked up his phone and called Klaus. "Klaus, are you at the headquarters right now?" "Yes, President." "What's up?" "Go dig up the things I buried by the lake a while ago and then use a helicopter to transport them to Santiago as fast as possible. Also, track my phone's location." "Oh, I got it." Chen Zhao walked out of the room and went downstairs. In the hotel lobby, he saw Robert standing there, scared out of his wits. "Mr. Chen, where are you going?" Chen Zhao didn't even look back. He walked out directly. "It's none of your business. Go back to sleep." "But Pierre's missing. He's from the basketball club." "Mr. Chen, should we call the police?" "No, I'll bring him back now," Chen Zhao said calmly. "Go to sleep now." "Mr. Chen, how can I sleep now? I don't think you'll like where I'm going." "Why?" Just then, a few people rushed out from both sides. They covered Chen Zhao and Robert with black cloth and dragged them into the car. What are you doing?" "Help! Help!" Suddenly, Robert felt like a hard stick was stuffed into his mouth. "Shut up. If you speak again, I'll shoot you." Chapter 1154. Robert's mouth was stuffed with a gun the entire time. He was so scared that he didn't even dare to move. The car had been driving for more than half an hour, but they still hadn't arrived. It seemed that their destination was very far away. But to Qin Zhao, it didn't matter if he wore a hood or not. "Fuck, why aren't you reacting at all? Scream, scream!" One of the kidnappers saw that Qin Zhao didn't react at all. He didn't know if there was something wrong with him, but he felt very disappointed, or perhaps insulted. Suddenly, Qin Zhao raised his hand and caught the gangster's fist in the dark. "You can see?" The gangster stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Qin Zhao was wearing a hood. How could he catch his attack? Was it a coincidence? "I'm not in a good mood right now. Don't piss me off." Even though he was wearing a mask, Qin Zhao's tone made the gang members in the car feel chills down their spines. They didn't know why, but this guy was clearly the most dangerous. "Fuck you, stop pretending!" The gangster thought that Qin Zhao was pretending and wanted to attack him again. The gangster thought that Qin Zhao was pretending, so he wanted to attack him again. The gangster thought that Qin Zhao was pretending and wanted to attack him again. The next moment, the car was filled with the gangster's painful screams. Crack, finally, there was silence. Other than Robert, who didn't know what was going on, the other gangsters all saw what happened in the car. Even the driver saw how Qin Zhao had killed their comrade through the rearview mirror. Qin Zhao was wearing a hood, but he first crushed his comrade's wrist and then twisted his neck. "So noisy," Qin Zhao said casually. All the gangsters pointed their guns at Qin Zhao. "If you want to get off alive, you better put down your guns. After all, I still need to lead the way. I don't want to fight halfway." Hearing Qin Zhao's arrogant tone, the gangsters found it funny. "You have a gun pointed at your head. You forgot to load it," Qin Zhao reminded. The gangster was stunned. He hurriedly loaded his gun and continued pointing at Qin Zhao's head. However, the atmosphere had changed. "Forget it. Boss Bob will kill you anyway. We don't need to do anything." "That's right. You'll taste Boss Bob's horror. Not only you, but your wife and daughter will as well. Hee hee. Remember that policeman last time? Boss Bob mailed his wife's underwear to him. It's none of my business, it's none of my business. It's none of my business." Robert held his head and kept screaming in fear. After another half an hour, the car finally arrived at the port. Both Qin Zhao and Robert were pushed out of the car. Their hoods were also removed. Qin Zhao admired the night view. The workers around him were busy, as if they didn't see Qin Zhao and Robert being held hostage. These so-called workers were, in fact, gang members. They put on their work uniforms. This port was actually a parking lot during the day. Other than the gang members, no one knew the exact location of this place. This was also why this place could avoid the police's line of sight. On top of that, the police had also been infiltrated. Many of the judicial departments in the United States were actually connected to the gangs and even had some transactions. There were dozens of people in front of them, and at the feet of the fat leader was a man covered in bruises. It was Pierre. Bob looked at Qin Zhao and Robert. "Why is there one more person? Where's Twick?" "Boss Bob, this guy's with him. Twick was killed by this Asian." "It's none of my business! It's none of my business!" Robert yelled in horror. Bob ignored Robert and looked at Qin Zhao. "Mr. Qin, we finally meet. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Bob. The people you hurt today are my men, and the goods you destroyed are also mine. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, your organs will appear on the European continent. Your wife will also appear there, and your daughter will be dismembered. By the way, I heard that you also have a pet. I like to eat dogs." Qin Zhao suddenly grinned. His smile was a bit twisted, and the curve of his lips was a bit scary. His eyes widened as he stared at Bob. "What kind of answer do you want from me? I heard that you're very rich. How about this? You compensate me 100 times the price of the goods. That way, I can consider letting your wife and daughter go." Bob played with the ring on his finger. "Do you know how I earned my wealth?" Qin Zhao asked. "How did you earn it?" I'd really like to know. It's simple. I just kill people and some other things. As long as they're in my way, I usually kill them. Chen Zhao's smile was full of savagery. Just like this. Chen Zhao casually grabbed a gang member beside him. In front of Bob and dozens of people, he tore off the man's arm, leg, and stomach. The man screamed and begged for help, but everyone was stunned by Chen Zhao's terrifying methods. Chen Zhao used his bloody palm to stroke his hair. There was only one thought in everyone's mind. Even Robert didn't expect the usually polite Chen Zhao to have such a bloody and cruel side. Everyone pointed their guns at Chen Zhao. Bob's eyes flickered when he looked at Chen Zhao. He saw Chen Zhao's eyes. He saw the brutality in the man's eyes. Bob had hired quite a number of killers to help him deal with some of the dirty work. The killers' eyes were very similar to Chen Zhao's. But none of them would be as crazy and unscrupulous as Chen Zhao. Bob felt that he wasn't facing a human, but a beast. A crazy beast. Seeing that dozens of guns were pointed at him, Robert was so scared that he peed his pants. He really peed his pants. It's over, it's over. Robert's face paled in fear. I hate being threatened, especially when it involves my family. The bones in Chen Zhao's body made crackling sounds. But you can't do anything now. Bob felt that Chen Zhao might be the boss of some force. But he had no way out now. What he needed to consider now wasn't whether the force behind Chen Zhao would take revenge. Instead, he needed to kill Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at the time on his watch. It's about time. Whoosh, 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 the sound of a helicopter came from the night sky. Just then, everyone saw an armed helicopter appear above the port. However, there was a machine hanging below the helicopter. Chapter 1155. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Before the gangsters could react, the military helicopter and the Lightning Team members who were already in position formed an arc-shaped encirclement. Of course, it wasn't accurate to call it an encirclement. After all, including the military helicopter, there were only 6 of them. There were at least 100 of Bob's men and the workers. However, the Lightning Team had brought powerful firepower this time. The 2 gun barrels on the landing gear of the military helicopter suddenly spat out tongues of fire. The other 5 Lightning Team members in different corners also attacked at the same time. Whoosh, 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 Robert and Pierre both hugged their heads and lay on the ground. The people around them were riddled with holes and fell to the ground one after another. Counterattack! 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 Bob shouted with all his might, but he also hugged his head and lay on the ground. Chen Zhao was the only one left standing. It wasn't that the gangsters didn't want to fight back, but they were armed with pistols. They were facing the military helicopter and automatic weapons. The military helicopter used 12mm armor-piercing bullets. They could even penetrate regular armored vehicles. If they hit a person, their body would be destroyed immediately. Klaus and the others were holding heavy machine guns, the kind that needed a rack to shoot. However, they were holding them in their hands. These weapons could fire more than 200 rounds per minute. Moreover, they had the high ground. In this situation, the gangsters couldn't fight back at all. Bob kept holding the pistol in his hand, but he didn't fire a single shot. He didn't even have the courage to look up. Chen Zhao's voice rang in his ears. Kill everyone in this port. Don't leave a single one alive! The military helicopter whistled and the gunshots grew further away. However, the screams were endless. Robert and Pierre were also terrified. Just like Bob, they hugged their heads and curled up on the ground in fear. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood and the smoke that made people cry uncontrollably. This killing process lasted for about 10 minutes. Finally, Bob heard the second person's voice. President, they're all dead. There were flames in the distance. The Lightning Team was setting the place on fire. They wanted to burn the entire port. Give me what I want, Chen Zhao said. The military helicopter landed slowly. Klaus and the others had flown at maximum speed to carry out Chen Zhao's orders. In an hour, they had traveled 400 kilometers. The meat grinder was still as good as new. The lightning squad still had 10 minutes to dig it out from the ground and clean it while they were at it. Cass didn't know what Chen Zhao wanted to do, but he could hear Chen Zhao's tone. It was the prelude to a volcano eruption. Someone had angered him. "Mr. Bob, aren't you going to look up and see where you belong?" Chen Zhao asked. Bob raised his head and looked around. At this moment, his face was extremely pale. He realized that he was in big trouble. He was not the owner of this port, he was just the manager. This port was jointly owned by the three major forces of San Diego. But now, the port was completely destroyed. "Do you know what you're doing?" "I know. Of course I know what I'm doing," Chen Zhao said with a smile. "You're threatening my family." Chen Zhao looked at Bob and then at Klaus. "Start this mincing machine." Rumble. The mincing machine emitted a deafening sound. Chen Zhao walked up. Bob tried to resist, but Chen Zhao kicked Bob's gun-wielding arm first. The kick broke it, and the arm flew into Bob's mouth. Bob screamed in pain. His right arm was a bloody mess. Chen Zhao picked up Bob's foot and dragged him to the mincing machine. "No! Let me go, let me go! I won't do it again. I apologize for my inappropriate words earlier, sorry, I can't accept it." Whoosh! Chen Zhao stuffed Bob's foot into the entrance of the mincing machine. Blood sprayed out from the entrance. Bob's tenacious life force did not kill him immediately. He was still struggling. He finally realized that he had offended a demon. There was no pity or sympathy. He could only endure hell and despair, complaining with heart-wrenching screams. Even though Bob's legs were completely crushed, he was still alive, not dead immediately. But now, he no longer had the strength to scream. His stomach had sunk into the mincing machine. Just then, the mincing machine suddenly stopped. Chen Zhao turned off the switch and looked at Bob, who was still stuck in the mincing machine. "That's perfect. Have a good night." Chen Zhao looked at Robert and Pierre. "You can leave now. By the way, Pierre violated the school rules tonight. He came out to drink and got into a fight outside the school. Find him and give him a demerit." The two nodded. They did not dare to look at Bob's tragic state. This was an even crueler butcher than Bob. Early morning. "Bolton, go to the outskirts 30 kilometers away immediately." "What happened?" Bolton was sleeping with his wife in his arms. "We found the legendary Port of Sin." Bolton suddenly woke up from his bed. "How did you find it?" "There was a gunfight last night." "No, more accurately, it was a massacre." "I'll go immediately." "Send me the exact location." San Diego was very busy today. Almost all the police officers were heading toward the same location. When Bolton arrived at the port, he saw a few police officers surrounding a mincing machine. "Hey, Dawes." "Bolton, you're here. Is there a war here?" "Yes, but it's a one-sided war. Look at what this is. 12mm armor-piercing bullets. Do the gangs all use this kind of weapon in fights nowadays?" At this moment, the two policemen behind dragged a person down from the machine. "Huh? Wah!" Bolton immediately vomited, while the other colleagues all had gloating expressions on their faces. Bob's intestines were all out. His lower body was empty. He died from the pain. The entire place had been burned down, but it was still relatively clean. "Isn't that Bob? Who did he offend? Mexicans? Colombians? Mafia?" "According to the investigation, Bob is the manager of this port, which is owned by three forces. It can't be them. Other than these three forces, who else has this kind of ability? Who else has such cruel methods? That's what we need to investigate," Dawes said. "They're a group of evil people." Chapter 1156. This. Dawes took out a staff card. "This is?" Bob took the card. "Robert, UCLA basketball coach? We found them in this car. In the entire port, only this car and the meat grinder were not destroyed. We also found a relatively intact corpse in the car. His neck was broken. Any other clues? In front of the mincing machine, apart from Bob's blood and muscle tissue, we also found the blood and teeth of a second person. This person's body was not found at the scene. At present, this person's blood and muscle tissue have been sent to the laboratory for analysis and sample comparison. Just then, Dawes' phone rang. 2 minutes after Dawes took the phone, he said to Bolton, "The sample comparison results are out. He's a student from UCLA and also a member of the school's basketball team. His name is Pierre. He's in a hotel in San Diego right now. He's here to participate in the university games. What about Robert? He's also staying in this hotel. Leave these two to me. I'll investigate them." Bolton rushed to the hotel and asked the front desk which UCLA students were staying at. "Sir, please wait a moment," the receptionist said. "I'll call the UCLA team leader." Chen Zhao received the call and went to the front desk. Chen Zhao studied Bolton. "Sir, how can I help you?" "I want to see UCLA basketball coach Robert and student Pierre," Bolton said. "May I ask why they're here?" "They're related to a case. I need their help." "Okay, please follow me." Chen Zhao called Robert. "Robert, a police officer is looking for you. He says he needs your help. Come to the lobby with Pierre immediately." It was not long before Robert and Pierre arrived. Bolton glanced at Robert's staff card and handed it to him. "Mr. Robert, this is yours, right?" When Robert saw the card, his expression changed. He really didn't realize that he'd lost his card. "Yes. This work pass was left in a van. I'd like to ask, Mr. Robert, where did you and Pierre go last night?" "Pierre went out to drink last night and messed with some hooligans. I went to bring him back," Robert said. "Pierre was also given a demerit for this. You went to the port on the outskirts last night, right?" "Yes." Robert seemed a little nervous. "Mr. Pierre, I'd like to know who beat you last night. I don't know their exact identities. Probably a local gang. Who were the people who drank with you?" "I was alone. I bought a bottle of wine and drank it on the street. Because I vomited at the feet of a group of people, they dragged me into a car. I don't know where exactly, but I was beaten up." Pierre's face was still bruised, so his words seemed to be credible. Bolton didn't think that Pierre or Robert were related to this case. From their personal information, they were all very ordinary. He did not have any criminal records, nor did he have any dealings with any gangs. "Did anything special happen during this process? Is it a special process for me to be beaten?" Pierre asked. Bolton stroked his beard. "Mr. Robert, why is your work badge in that gang's car?" "I was told to pick up Pierre, and I was dragged into the car too," Robert said calmly. "I think my work pass fell off during the tug." Both Robert and Pierre were terrified, and they were trying their best to control their emotions. They did not dare to expose themselves because Chen Zhao was watching from the side. If they had said another word, they might have ended up like Bob, dying without a whole corpse. This police officer didn't know that Chen Zhao was the real Demon King. He was the culprit. "So the gang let you and Mr. Pierre go so easily after you arrived? What else? What should they do? They won't kill us, right?" Bolton was stunned. Robert's words seemed to make some sense, but something was wrong. As for what was wrong, he couldn't tell. The only thing he was sure of was that the two of them were definitely not the culprits. "All right. Thank you for your cooperation. If there's anything else I need, I'll need your help." Bolton stood up and left. After a few steps, he turned back. He saw Robert and Pierre looking at Chen Zhao with fear in their eyes. Bolton returned. "Mr. Chen, can I ask you a few questions?" "No, I don't have time," Chen Zhao said, standing up. "Daddy." At this moment, a childish voice came from behind Bolton. Turning around, Bolton saw a beautiful pregnant woman and a little girl walking toward them. Chen Zhao smiled immediately. He picked up Jerlin, who ran over happily. "Baby, do you miss Dad?" "Excuse me." Chen Zhao glanced at Bolton. Carrying Jerlin, he went upstairs with Fei Lai. Bolton looked at Chen Zhao's back. He was a bit hesitant about what had just happened. However, he could not find anything suspicious about Chen Zhao. He could only ask for Chen Zhao's cooperation, but Chen Zhao also had the right to refuse unless he could show some evidence. "Is Mr. Chen your school's leader?" "He's a professor," Robert said. "He's different from me." Looking at Chen Zhao's back, Bolton felt even more helpless. There is a great deal of risk in offending a man of high social standing. Being a university professor was undoubtedly the most respected profession. Thus, Bolton could only give up on pestering Chen Zhao. After Chen Zhao and Fei Lai entered the elevator, Fei Lai asked, "That person was a police officer, right? What did you do last night?" "In Chinese terms, I got rid of evil for the people, upheld justice, and protected my students." Chen Zhao did not want to continue this topic, so he changed it decisively. "Did you drive here today? Or by train?" "Train." To be honest, the train in America was not pleasant. The slow speed and having to stop at every station made the experience unpleasant. Comparatively speaking, the domestic railway system was much more complete. Of course, this was also because there were a lot of people in the country. There were fewer drivers, so there was a certain dependence on the railway. Of course, the railway system was more powerful. America also had high-speed rail, but the coverage was much lower. Chapter 1157. Robert and Pierre glanced at each other, and heaved a long sigh of relief. They'd finally gotten rid of the police officer. They didn't want to be enemies with Chen Zhao. They'd seen Chen Zhao's subordinates kill more than 100 people with their own eyes. At the same time, there was Bob. To them, it was a shadow that they couldn't get rid of. And this incident had alarmed far more than just the police. At the moment, the atmosphere in a club in San Diego was especially heavy. The club belonged to the Jerovitz family, but today, 2 groups of uninvited guests had arrived. The entire club was in a tense atmosphere. The Colombian and Mexican gangs came to the club together. "Barsaco, Gazeville, what's the meaning of this?" Mollisman looked at the two in front. "The port that our 3 parties jointly run has been destroyed." "Mr. Mollisman, aren't you going to explain?" Barsaco stared at Mollisman. He wanted to find some clues from Mollisman's expression. Mollisman frowned. "You think I did it? Who else could it be other than you?" Although the port was jointly owned by the 3 parties, the Jerovitz family had always wanted to wash their hands clean. Therefore, many businesses had been sold or transferred. Therefore, the share of the port's profits was very small. Most of the time, the Mexican and Colombian gangs were happy to see this. But now that something had happened to the port, the first person they thought of was the Jerovitz family. "I didn't do it." "You can leave," Mollisman said. Then he planned to chase the 2 away. "You think it's not me? Show me the evidence," Barsaco said relentlessly. Raising an eyebrow, Mollisman turned to look at Barsaco. "My words are the evidence. Our family never hides our true intentions. If we did it, we won't lie." Barsaco and Gazeville were angry at Mollisman's perfunctory attitude, but they just wanted to know the truth now. After all, the destroyed port was too great a loss for them. Large amounts of goods were piled up in their hands and couldn't be transported out. Their goods on the sea couldn't be sent in either. The daily losses made them cry. Of course, Mollisman was the most suspicious, but it wasn't very likely. Although Mollisman had the least interest in the port, it did not mean that they had no interest at all. "I believe you, Mr. Morrisman," said Gazeville. Barasco's face was filled with displeasure. What Gazeville said meant that he was being isolated. "But don't you want to find the real murderer?" "No," Mollisman said indifferently. "Of course, if you find the real culprit, you can inform me. I also want to see who did it." Mollisman was very curious as to what kind of person could have such powerful strength. From the information he had received, the other party did not have many people, but their firepower was terrifying. They even found traces of an armed helicopter. This made Mollisman suspect that the military was involved. Although there were many private planes in the United States, it was almost impossible for anyone other than the military to own an armed helicopter. This was also the reason why Mollisman did not want to delve into it. In the United States, he could argue with everything. He could go against the government, but he couldn't go against the military. There were people from their family in the government, but the military did not allow the mafia to interfere. Therefore, Mollisman had always pursued the principle of keeping a low profile, especially when it came to people with sensitive identities. From all the traces at the scene, the other party had a powerful background. "Coward," Barasco said unhappily. Mollisman sneered inwardly. He was different from these barbarians. If it was profitable, the mafia's methods would not be any weaker than theirs. But if it was meaningless violence, it would only attract more attention from their enemies. This was also why members of the Jarovitz family could walk openly on the streets. As for the two gangs, they could only survive in the dark corners. "Since Mr. Mollisman doesn't care about this attack, I presume you don't care about the interests of the port. How about this? This time, Barasco and I will investigate, but Mr. Mollisman will not be involved in the reconstruction of the port," Gazeville said. Barasco's eyes lit up. This was a good excuse to share the interests of the port with Gazeville. "Okay." Mollisman smiled. These two idiots thought of things too simply. The port had been able to exist for so many years because of the joint maintenance of the three parties. Without anyone, the port could not continue to operate. They were actually naive enough to doubt that they could eliminate him with this move. It was really wishful thinking. Soon, they would come to him for help. Barasco and Gazeville left the clubhouse unhappily. Mollisman snapped his fingers, and a neatly dressed butler with slicked back hair came to Mollisman. "Do you have any clues here? Last night, San Diego's local air traffic control received an order. There was an armed helicopter flying over downtown San Diego at 2:25 in the morning," the butler said. Mollisman thought to himself that it was indeed not simple. He could actually send an order to the air traffic control. "Which party sent the order?" "California Anti-Terrorism Department," Mollisman gasped. The functions of the Anti-Terrorism Department and the police were similar, but the authority of action was completely different. Since 9/2, the anti-terrorism departments in the United States had implemented a high control policy, which was the so-called suspicion was dangerous policy. As long as anyone or any force was suspected of being related to terrorist acts, they would be under absolute control, and any extraordinary means of violence could be used. "Is there any more information?" "The phone device Bob used was a communications company under his family's name. From Bob's phone records in the last 3 hours, he made a total of 2 calls. One was a UCLA student named Pierre, and the other was a university professor, a Chinese." "What's so special about these 2 calls?" "There's nothing special about Pierre, but the university professor has another identity, an illegal doctor. He's been in America for more than a year, but he used self-defense as an excuse and killed no less than 30 people. He's an out-and-out butcher." "Oh?" Mollisman's interest was piqued. It was not a skill to kill many people. Some of the gunmen in their family had killed dozens of people. Chapter 1158. Is there any more information about this person? This person has earned $100 million in a year, the butler said. Up until now, he seems to have tax-free privileges. Mollisman's eyes glinted. How scary was the IRS? The IRS dared to collect taxes from drug lords. There was once a famous drug lord who was investigated by the IRS for tax evasion and then arrested by the FBI. But tax-free privileges. How much power did one have to have? Of course, the tax-free privilege was hidden. It couldn't be blatantly said. I don't have to pay taxes. People like Mollisman wouldn't be able to get it in their entire lives. No matter how developed their families were, they wouldn't be able to get this privilege. This matter ends here. Don't pursue it any further. There was only one person floating out of the water now. But it had already involved the anti-terrorism department. This was a taboo area for people of their status. If the other party realized that they were investigating, it might cause a misunderstanding. The final result would be hard to say. In the 1970s, the Mafia had tried to control the FBI. In the end, the 5 families all fled New York City. This was a taboo that they couldn't touch. Qin Zhao carried Zherlin with one hand and held Fei Lai's hand with the other. But the moment they left the hotel, Qin Zhao felt that someone was watching them. Qin Zhao's brows furrowed slightly, but he soon understood. He didn't want to act strangely in front of Fei Lai. So, he pretended that nothing had happened and sat in their rented car to go shopping. The people who were spying on them were still following them. A cold glint flashed across Qin Yao's eyes. So annoying. With Fei Lai beside him, Qin Zhao couldn't do anything on the street. "Chen, what are you doing? You look so restless. What are you thinking about?" "Nothing. I just feel that San Diego is a bit unfamiliar. I'm trying to think of a fun place. Let's go to the beach. San Diego's Grand Canyon coast is a famous surfing mecca. Don't think about surfing like this." Qin Zhao looked at Fei Lai's stomach. "I don't care. After our new home is built, I can surf whenever I want." Fei Lai was looking forward to the completion of her new home. Generally, in order to become a surfing mecca, a few conditions must be met. First, the height and speed of the waves must be high. Second, there must be no dangerous creatures such as sharks. Many coastlines had the height and speed of the waves, but there were too many sharks, making it impossible for surfers to go into the water. For example, their new home was the same. Back then, Amira had bought it to create a golden beach. But because of the sharks, the plan was ruined. In the United States, it was not allowed to reduce the number of sharks by killing them. Otherwise, the people from the Animal Protection Organization would come looking for them. "I don't want to go into the water. I just want to take a look." Fei Lai had been away from her post for too long and was a bit bored. All right. 2 adults and 1 child arrived at the Grand Canyon Beach. The reason why it was called the Grand Canyon Beach was because there was an ocean canyon 100 meters away from the coastline. It was precisely because of this underwater canyon that the current changed and formed huge waves. "See, roar!" Little Zherlin screamed. Qin Zhao facepalmed. Where did Zherlin learn to speak in such a weird way? It must be those little bastards at home. When he went back, he would interrogate them one by one and skin them alive. Little Zherlin immediately wanted to take off her clothes. When she was at home, she could go into the water whenever she wanted. Qin Zhao immediately stopped her. What a joke! Where was this? It wasn't his home. Even if she was a child, people might call the police if she was exposed here. Also, there were many perverts in the United States. "Dad, I want to go, I want to go." Little Zherlin squirmed in Qin Zhao's arms. "Forget it. I'll go buy a small swimsuit." "Fei Lai, can you let it go?" It wasn't that Fei Lai couldn't go into the water, but that she couldn't wear a swimsuit. It was tight-fitting and not suitable for pregnant women. The swimsuit at home was specially designed for Fei Lai by Zola's company, but they didn't bring it. "I won't go in," Fei Lai said. "The water outside isn't clean." Fei Lai didn't go in, so Qin Zhao didn't go either. He just sat with Fei Lai on the beach. After changing into her swimsuit, little Zherlin played on the beach. However, Qin Zhao's gaze didn't leave Zherlin. The wave from here to the shore was more than 80 centimeters, so Qin Zhao was worried that it would wash over Zherlin. Just then, a sudden voice rang out. "Barbarians." Qin Zhao turned around and saw a few young people, both men and women. Everyone was holding a surfboard. They all looked at Qin Zhao. However, Qin Zhao didn't recognize them at all. "Who are you? Did you forget?" "Barbarians." "I don't know." Hearing that Qin Zhao had completely forgotten about them, the young people were even more furious. "We're from UCSF's swim team." "Oh, I remember." Qin Zhao slapped his head. "It's you guys. Are your arms and legs healed? How dare you appear before me?" Thinking of Qin Zhao's terrifying combat ability, the students became timid again. However, one of them mustered up his courage and said, "Do you dare to hit us here?" "Idiot. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. He didn't even want to bother with these kids. The past was the past. Qin Zhao didn't want to cause trouble for them anymore. However, if they insisted on messing with Qin Zhao, he didn't mind teaching them a lesson. Asian, do you dare to compete with us in surfing? Boring. Qin Zhao pouted. These kids couldn't pique Qin Zhao's interest at all. Coward. Yeah, you only know how to bully people. Coward. Even the accompanying girls started mocking Qin Zhao. Darling, go. Since they want to embarrass themselves, let them know that you won't lose to them in any aspect. Qin Zhao didn't mind, but Fei Lai did. She was mocking her man right in front of her. If it were in the past, Fei Lai would do it herself. However, she had a big belly now and couldn't do it. There were formal competitions in surfing and the scoring method was more orthodox. After the peak of the wave, the longer one maintained it, and the more difficult moves one could make, the higher the score. Chapter 1159. Fine, Qin Zhao said. Since we're going to compete, we'll use the points system. Also, choose someone to compete with me. Everyone looked at each other. In the end, the leader ran out. I'll compete with you, the leader said. Villiers, don't embarrass UCSF. Don't worry. You already lost last year. Qin Zhao didn't give them any face. It doesn't matter. You've already lost your face last year. Qin Zhao didn't want to give them any face. Because of the boxing club incident, all the UCSF students felt embarrassed. It also affected their mentality. Because of the boxing club incident, all of the UCSF students felt humiliated, and it affected their own psychology as well. They didn't think that fighting was embarrassing. In fact, even UCLA thought so. They didn't think it was embarrassing to fight. In fact, even UCLA thought so. The key was that he took the initiative to pick a fight with someone, but in the end, he lost. Most of the students had experienced last year's incident. When they heard Qin Zhao's words, they were all furious. Usually, they'd fight impulsively after being insulted like that. Normally, they'd definitely fight impulsively after being insulted like that. But before Qin Zhao, they really didn't have the courage. Fight Qin Zhao? They probably wouldn't die fast enough. The waves are perfect right now. Don't waste time. Come, Qin Zhao urged. Oh, lend me a surfboard. Qin Zhao didn't care if they were willing or not. He snatched a surfboard. 3, 2, 1, start. Holding the boards, Qin Zhao and Villiers charged into the water at the same time. First, they paddled and waited for the waves to come. The highest waves on the Grand Canyon beach could go over 18 meters. Usually, it was a good surfing beach if it could go over 8 meters. Normal people wouldn't dare to surf there. If they encountered a huge wave over 18 meters, they'd get hurt. Villiers was faster than Qin Zhao. He looked back at Qin Zhao mockingly. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. This was a surfing competition, not a paddling competition. What's the point of being fast? By then, the two had already paddled to the waves. Villiers stood on the board first. Qin Zhao also stood on the surfboard. Then it was time to get on the waves. The two controlled the boards and slid up. Getting on the waves was already a score. Being able to get on the waves without falling was 5 points. It had to be said that Villiers' technique was quite good. He managed to get up and down twice in a row. Qin Zhao leaned back and stepped on the bottom of the skateboard with one foot. The front end was completely lifted up. He maintained a stable posture, neither up nor down in the middle of the wave wall. What move is that? That's climbing the wall, said a student who was familiar with surfing, but his face was quite heavy. This is a very difficult move. By then, the waves had already arrived. Both Qin Zhao and Villiers lowered their center of gravity. The two of them, one in front and one behind, were running away from the wall of waves. Logically speaking, Qin Zhao, who was at the back, was at a greater disadvantage. But Qin Zhao kept his composure. On the other hand, Villiers' body began to sway, and both of them were engulfed by the waves. As for Villiers, he lost his balance and fell heavily into the sea. Qin Zhao successfully passed through the wall of waves. He stood firmly on the skateboard and continued to row forward. Everyone's expressions were ugly. It was obvious that Villiers had lost. In terms of technique, it wasn't as difficult as Qin Zhao. In terms of stability, it wasn't as stable as Qin Zhao. The difference wasn't just a little bit. Qin Zhao returned to the shore first and tossed the skateboard to the UCSF students. "You people from UCSF are so useless. How dare you challenge me with such little skill? Go back and drink milk for a few more years." Qin Zhao's words were quite unpleasant. But just then, a woman in a swimsuit walked over. "Kid, are you insulting UCSF? You're from UCSF too? Then I'll admit it." Qin Zhao shrugged. "I'll compete with you," the woman said. "Are all UCSF people so sore losers? You win one and then another, just like last year's sports day." Qin Zhao's tone was rather arrogant. "You can call them losers, but you can't call UCSF people that bad. This is the power of the winner, just like last year. Which school are you from? You're not a student, right? You should be a teacher or coach from another university. Do you think it's glorious to win against a bunch of students? Last year, they challenged me and I won, so it's glorious. Now, they're challenging me again and I won again. Do you think I should feel ashamed?" The woman turned to the UCSF students. "Which university is he from?" The students didn't know this woman, but she must be a senior from their school. At least they were on the same side. "He's a professor at UCLA." "Professor? Isn't he a coach or PE teacher?" "He's the coach of the boxing club and the swimming team," Villiers said. "So your best events are boxing and swimming, right? I'll find someone and you can compete with him." "Not interested," Qin Zhao said disinterestedly. "Are you scared? If I have to accept everyone's challenge, wouldn't I be too busy? $1 million. If you can beat this person, I won't pursue your inappropriate comments. If you lose, you have to publicly apologize. Qin, if this lady wants to give you money, why don't you accept?" Fei Lai asked. "I don't want to waste such a good time for $1 million. Miss, this man's boxing skills are very strong. He crippled Douglas with one punch." Hearing this, the woman's expression changed. Then she said, "Let's compete in swimming." Fei Lai snorted. This woman probably didn't know how to write the word death. How good was Qin Zhao's swimming? Even fish in the water couldn't swim faster than Qin Zhao. "Darling, it's time to show you how good you are," Fei Lai said. "You're comparing us?" "Of course not. I'm looking for someone." "Fine, but you better hurry up. I don't want to waste time." "Half an hour," the woman said. "Okay, I'll give you half an hour. Oh, you better prepare $1 million too. Don't go back on your words." The woman jogged to the changing room and picked up her phone. "Evely, come to the Grand Canyon Beach immediately." "Barisa, what do you want me to do?" "Don't worry about that. Hurry up. Don't forget that you still owe me." "Does that mean I'll return the favor if I go?" Chapter 1160. A while later, Evely arrived. Barisa dragged Evely to the beach anxiously. "Barisa, what do you want? Help me win against someone. Is my world championship so worthless?" Evely said, annoyed. "If I lose, I'll lose over $100, Barisa said. "Do you care about that?" "I'll lose face." Barisa didn't care about $1 million, but she cared more about her face. "Do you know how much my appearance fee is for the Asian exhibition? No matter how much it is, you have to help me win against that person today," Barisa said, pulling Evely. "You're not going to make me swim in the sea, right?" Evely looked at Barisa, depressed. Barisa was her sister. The reason why Evely could be free from the restrictions of her family and focus on her own swimming was also because Barisa had given up her own business and taken over the family's business. Only then could Evely be free. However, this also led to Barisa using this matter to blackmail Evely. Evely's face was filled with helplessness. She could only follow Barisa to change into her swimsuit. In the distance, Evely saw three familiar figures. Wasn't that Qinzhao, Fei Lai, and Zherlin? What a coincidence. Were they playing here too? Evely walked toward Fei Lai and Qinzhao. Hi, Chen Fei Lai, Evely greeted. Hi, Evely. What a coincidence. Qinzhao turned around and saw Barisa standing beside Evely. Wait. You're the helper she found? Yes, Evely. Barisa wasn't surprised that Qinzhao knew Evely at all. Since Qinzhao was UCLA's swimming coach, there was no reason he wouldn't know Evely. Evely stared at Barisa with widened eyes. You want me to compete with Chen? Yes. Barisa nodded. You found a UCLA student to compete with me. No matter who wins or loses, it seems like our school will win. You said I can find helper? Since that's the case, I can find anyone. So now, she's not representing UCLA, but UCSF. Evely covered her head. She really didn't understand Barisa's thoughts. Of course, Barisa was not stupid. In fact, her thoughts were very clear. Evely was the world record holder. Moreover, he was the world record holder for men. She didn't believe Evely would lose to Qinzhao. No matter how strong Qinzhao was, he was just a coach. If he could really do well, he wouldn't be a coach anymore. Therefore, she firmly believed that Evely could win. I can't beat him. Barisa, just give me $1 million, Evely said. Evely, you can't do this. You're the world champion. How can you give up so easily? Barisa panicked. It's not about $1 million. It was a matter of face. She had been confident that Evely would win. Who would have thought that Evely would admit defeat? To her, Evely was purposely going easy on her. I'm telling the truth. I don't care. You have to compete. I didn't call you here to admit defeat. You can't admit defeat just because he's the coach of UCLA. I can't accept that. It wasn't like Evely hadn't fought Qinzhao before. She trained in front of Qinzhao's house for more than a week. Qinzhao would swim in the water every day, but his monstrous speed made her feel despair every time. After so many times, Evely had completely given up hope. Competing with Qinzhao was like torturing oneself. Evely didn't want to compete with Qinzhao. The process was too painful. Do you know that all the members of our national team were defeated by him? Evely asked. I don't believe it. You only favor him because you know each other. You're my sister. Anyway, I won't accept this result. I refuse to pay the $1 million. Chen, I'll pay the $1 million for Barisa. Forget it. Qinzhao shrugged. After all, he and Evely were old friends. He couldn't make things difficult for her sister for $1 million. Qinzhao glanced at Barisa. Oh, why don't you find that foreign boxer? I'm happy to have a round of beach boxing. Don't be so arrogant. Last year's WBA gold belt was our company's product spokesperson. I'll make him. Evely covered her face. You mean Tiger, right? He's also Chen's student. What? Tiger's a UCLA student? Fuck, I'm canceling my collaboration with him. You people from UCSF are all weaklings. Qinzhao was unforgiving now that he had the upper hand. Barisa gritted her teeth in anger. What are you so proud of? You didn't win honorably. If Evely didn't go easy on you, do you think you could have won? Evely's a UCLA student. Evely, transferred to UCSF now. Evely felt that both Qinzhao and Barisa were so childish. Of course, Evely couldn't be more familiar with both Qinzhao and Barisa. Both of them were the type of people who, once they got excited, would be competitive. It was just like when Amira found the entire national team. At first, Qinzhao wasn't willing to compete. But when it came time to compete, Qinzhao didn't admit defeat. In the end, he defeated the entire national team and was still mocking them. You pieces of trash. Think of something that can beat him. Barisa vented her anger on the students of the University of San Francisco. Weightlifting, Evely said. He doesn't look like he does weightlifting. Don't even think about it. Our sports club lost to him in all the events last year, Evely said. Barisa, it's impossible for you to beat him in sports. I don't believe that one person can be good at all sports. Barisa gritted her teeth and looked at Qin Zhao. Asian, do you dare to bet with me? I have 3 days to prepare. I need to find a competition that can beat you. Not interested, Qin Zhao said, rolling his eyes. He was in high spirits. Who would be interested in serving her in 3 days? 30 million. You don't dare to accept? Compete in what? Pets. Pets? A strange expression appeared on Evely's face. She knew what Qin Zhao kept in his house. Barisa's idea was simple. According to Evely, Qin Zhao was almost unbeatable in sports. Then, she would compete in something other than Qin Zhao. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.